Chapter 153. Xiao Xian knew that this river was very big, but he didn't know it was this big. Sail, paddle, cha-cha, pulling the canoe, these three methods alternated. Other than a short break, the canoe continued to move forward. According to the sun and the moon at night, Xiao Xian always judged the direction and tried his best to keep the canoe moving in a straight line. Although they encountered a lot of trouble along the way, and even encountered a group of crazy fish fighting, forcing them to take a long detour, it wasn't to the extent that they couldn't see the end of the river. After today, it will be 15 days, Xiao Xian said to Cha-Cha, who was resting beside him, as he still couldn't see the end of the river in front of him. Cha-Cha, who was resting at the side, responded listlessly. In addition to the excitement and novelty at the beginning, countless frightening things had happened one after another. It was so scared that it had recently lost a lot of feathers. Xiao Xian was also tired. He hadn't had a good rest for 15 days straight. Although his recovery was very strong, he couldn't withstand long-term exhaustion. Moreover, Xiao Xian was most worried that if they continued to move forward, they wouldn't have time to return. After all, according to the original plan, they would return if they couldn't find the other side in 15 days. But now, he felt that they should still move forward. Cha-Cha, do you think there's a mainland in front? Xiao Xian kicked the bird beside him. This river was already beyond his imagination. If they continued to walk forward, he would even believe that they could reach the sea. Cha-Cha, who was grooming its feathers, raised its head and replied, then looked forward. It could feel the aura of a mainland in front of them, but it didn't know how far it was. Xiao Xian actually had the same feeling. He felt that if they continued to walk forward, they would reach the other side of the river. But that was too risky. Even if they reached the other side, what if the river was already falling rapidly and they couldn't see the top? What should they choose? Continue forward or go back? Xiao Xian closed his eyes and felt the totem in his mind. The totem flame in his mind started to roll, and the direction in which the flame was drifting was towards the front, and it was rolling quite violently. Opening his eyes, Xiao Xian adjusted the sail. Keep going. Ah, Cha-Cha answered weakly. It began to miss its life in the tribe. However, when it thought about the new land that Xiao Xian had mentioned, it became excited again. After traveling for another 8 days, Xiao Xian felt the totemic flames in his mind surging more violently. But at the same time, the river water was flowing faster. Xiao Xian had seen such a situation before. When this happened, the river level would drop sharply. Back in the tribe, they might still see a few rocks that were originally in the water, but the next day, they would see a muddy slope. Cha-Cha flew in the sky, pulling the boat. While Xiao Xian was pondering, Cha-Cha shouted from the sky. Xiao Xian looked up at the sky. Cha-Cha's cry meant that there was something in front of them. It was very likely that it was the river bank. Cha-Cha landed, and Xiao Xian jumped onto its back. Then, he let Cha-Cha take it up into the air to take a look. It was not easy to see on the canoe, but in the air, they could see a very thin black line in the distance. If they did not look carefully, they would not have noticed it. Cha-Cha was still holding the rope in its claws, so it could not abandon the canoe and fly up alone. If it did, the canoe would be washed away by the river. Even if they could not fly higher to observe, Xiao Xian was already excited. After drifting on the river for more than 20 days, Xiao Xian had no confidence if he still could not see the end of the river. Even if the totemic flames were rolling fiercely, if they could not reach the shore before the river level dropped sharply, they would still die. Now that he could see the border, the pressure in his heart was greatly reduced. He felt that the exhaustion from the past 20 days had dissipated, and he felt much more relaxed. Okay, Cha-Cha, we're almost there. Put in more effort. Xiao Xian returned to the canoe, and Cha-Cha continued to pull. The river flowed faster and faster, and the number of piranhas in the water gradually decreased. He did not know if it was because of the change in the river or because of other reasons. At least in the past 2 days, Xiao Xian did not encounter any other threats from the fish in the river. It was only the wind, the direction of the wind, and the speed of the river that slowed down the canoe's progress. The black line, at the border became more and more obvious. Looking at the sky, Xiao Xian hoped that they could reach the shore before sunset. There were too many unknown variables at night. As they gradually approached the river bank, Xiao Xian discovered that the river bank looked like a mountain because the river level had dropped too much. Fortunately, although it felt like they were sailing at the bottom of an abyss, they had finally reached the end of the abyss. This was a new place. Xiao Xian suddenly felt an indescribable excitement in his heart. The river bank was similar to the one in the tribe. Near the shore, there was a steep slope. However, not far from there was still water flowing down. That should be a tributary, and the water flowing out of that tributary flowed into the river. But now that the river level had dropped, the water from that tributary flowed down the slope. The closer they got to the shore, the stronger the wind became. The wind carried with it the stench of mud and the smell of decay. Xiao Xian looked at the height of the shore and the steep slope. He thought that the canoe would not be able to reach the shore. After more than 20 days of sailing, although they had used very strong and corrosion-resistant trees, they had been hit and bitten by large fish during the voyage, leaving behind many crisscrossing marks. There was even a hole at the bottom. Xiao Xian used something to plug it. This canoe had already completed its mission. Xiao Xian carried the remaining things on the canoe onto his back. After Cha-Cha landed, he jumped onto Cha-Cha's back. One man and one eagle flew towards the riverbank. Without the eagle to pull the damaged canoe, it floated downstream along with the rapid flow of the river. Soon, only a small shadow was left, and then it disappeared from Xiao Xian's sight. The wind became stronger. Without a certain direction, Cha-Cha almost fell into the mud several times. "Let's go, buddy. Put in more effort." Xiao Xian held on tightly to the eagle's body and shouted. Cha-Cha flapped its wings with all its strength and flew upwards. While flying, Xiao Xian suddenly said, "Wait, let's go over there and take a look." Although it didn't understand why Xiao Xian wanted to go over there, Cha-Cha still turned and flew in the direction Xiao Xian pointed. Soon, Xiao Xian saw a figure trapped in the mud and being dragged down by seaweed. "Help me!" That person was still shouting. His voice was a little hoarse. It was obvious that he had been shouting for some time, but no one came over. Moreover, he didn't seem to have much strength left. Every time he shouted, he would gasp for breath. That person didn't sound very old. His body was covered in mud, and nearly 2/3 of his body had been pulled down. There were also seaweed sticking out of the mud and wrapping around him. Cha-Cha couldn't get close, so Xiao Xian let Cha-Cha hold onto the rope. He tied the other end of the rope and jumped down. "Give me your hand," Xiao Xian said. Seeing Xiao Xian jump down from the eagle's back, the person was stunned. However, he quickly pulled his arms out of the mud with all his strength. Xiao Xian grabbed his arms and pulled them up. The seaweed was too tight. If Xiao Xian pulled them up forcefully, they would probably break the person's arms. Xiao Xian freed one hand and let Cha-Cha go down a little more. He took out his stone knife and quickly cut the seaweed sticking out of the mud. When Xiao Xian pulled the person up, the person who was trapped in the mud gathered the last of his strength and tried to break free from the seaweed, still tied to his legs. Xiao Xian noticed that although this person's face was covered in mud and he couldn't see clearly, his irises were yellowish-brown. His pupils were vertical like blades, giving off a fierce, cold, and merciless vibe. "I wonder which tribe he's from," Xiao Xian thought. Before Xiao Xian left, he went to the shaman's place for training and read almost all of the shaman's hidden scrolls. Xiao Xian knew too little about the person in front of him, so he couldn't match this person to the one recorded in the scrolls. When the person was finally pulled out of the mud, Cha-Cha began to fly up quickly. When he finally flew up and his feet touched the ground again, he suddenly felt a sense of fulfillment. This was solid ground, not the swaying surface of the river. The feeling of being rooted and solid was indeed more reliable. Cha-Cha also stood on the grassy ground and stepped on it a few times. As for the person who was rescued by Xiao Xian, he looked like an underage child. However, he was very vigilant against Xiao Xian, even though Xiao Xian had just saved his life. The person didn't say anything, so Xiao Xian didn't ask. After calming down, he began to pay attention to his surroundings. There were traces of human activity around. There weren't many, but he could see some. There were also mountains in the distance, and this area was mostly muddy. There were many potholes and pools of water. The natural depressions on the ground formed pools of different sizes. In addition, Xiao Xian also saw traces of claws and teeth on some of the rocks beside the pools. Those weren't made by humans in the water. However, Xiao Xian didn't feel any danger from these pools, and neither did Cha-Cha. Either the creatures in the water were very good at hiding, or there weren't any dangerous creatures in the water at the moment. The person who was rescued by Xiao Xian lay quietly on the ground, panting. Although he didn't say anything, his eyes kept glancing at Xiao Xian and Cha-Cha. Finally, the child couldn't help but ask, "Who are you? Why are you in our tribe?" He asked. "Your tribe? Which tribe are you from?" Xiao Xian asked. Seeing that the other party was still very vigilant, he said, "My eagle and I came from a faraway place by boat. However, the river level dropped too quickly, so we quickly went ashore. The boat was washed away just now, and I don't know how far it has gone." "How long have you been in the river?" The other party didn't believe Xiao Xian's words and looked at Xiao Xian suspiciously. He seemed very puzzled that Xiao Xian didn't know his tribe. "More than 20 days, Xiao Xian said. The other party's eyes widened, and the pupils in his tawny eyes were still narrowed. Chapter 154. In the animal skin scroll that the shaman showed Xiao Xian, there was no record of a tribe living here. What the scroll said was that this place used to be a wasteland. Back then, the ancestors of the tribe left their homeland for a new place. Unexpectedly, the earth cracked open, and the crack grew bigger and bigger until the end could not be seen. According to Xiao Xian's guess, after the huge crack appeared, because of the changes in the topography of other places, many tributaries flowed in and gradually filled the crack, turning it into a river. Because of this series of changes, creatures from the sea entered, such as those huge river beasts. However, this huge river formed because of the changes in the sky also blocked the ancestors' way back. The ancestors were always in awe of the things formed by the changes in the sky. Therefore, more often than not, even if they wanted to return, they would choose to find another way instead of returning directly from the river. In addition, the river was full of all kinds of threats, so their thoughts were even more diluted. Nearly 1,000 years had passed, and the Yinjiao tribe lived alone on the other side of the river. On this side of the river, there had also been a huge change. The once wasteland had become a wet area with many ponds and rivers, and there was even a tribe here. Fortunately, the language was interconnected, so communication was not that complicated. "What is the name of your tribe?" Xiao Xian asked. The other party did not answer. He stood up and carefully looked at Xiao Xian and continued to ask, "You really stayed on the river for more than 20 days?" "Yes," Xiao Xian answered. "You liar." After the other party shouted, he strode towards Xiao Xian, and with a fierce fist, he punched towards Xiao Xian's abdomen. Bang! Their palms met. The next moment, the opponent found that his fist was tightly clenched. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break free. His eyes flashed with killing intent, and his other hand reached out like lightning. His two hands joined together, and like a clamp, he tightly clamped Xiao Xian's fist. At the same time, his ankle suddenly turned, and his body was in the air, spinning rapidly. The mud on his body splashed in all directions as he spun. Bang! His feet landed on the ground, and the spinning stopped. "Who told you to lie to me, huh?" The expression on the person's face froze. His eyes widened as he stared at his hands in disbelief. He originally thought that he would break the other party's arm, but instead, he found that not only was his arm not broken, but both of his hands were tightly bound with straw ropes. He raised his head and looked at the person standing in front of him. Then, he looked at his own hands. How could this be? Xiao Xian looked at the person in front of him with a headache. He thought that the children of the Yinjiao tribe were fierce enough, but he didn't expect the one in front of him to be even more troublesome. If he said something wrong, he would use a killing move. If he hadn't pulled back quickly, his entire arm would have been twisted off. This brat was lying on the ground, motionlessly, just now, because he was recovering his strength. It wasn't easy for him to recover a little, but he used it to deal with his savior. What should I say about him? The attack just now had used up almost all of the strength he had recovered. The person whose hands were tied was panting heavily as he glared fiercely at Xiao Xian. The layer of mud on his face and other parts of his body had been shaken off by the spinning just now. Although there were still traces of mud, Xiao Xian could already see that he was different. Xiao Xian noticed that when the other party attacked him just now, totem tattoos had appeared on his body as well. However, the totem tattoos were all over his body, connected together in small blocks. On his face, his mouth was split open, almost reaching the back of his ears. Looking at the mouth full of sharp teeth, Xiao Xian was willing to bet that the brat in front of him was planning to bite him directly later. Now that he had no strength, the tattoos on his body gradually disappeared, and his mouth returned to its original shape. I never knew that someone would try to kill their savior. I'm sure the people of your tribe aren't good people either. Xiao Xian said, You're the bad one. Thief. The other party was still stubborn. What did I steal? Which either saw it? How dare you accuse me of being a thief without seeing anything? This is called framing. Do you know what framing means? You only know how to talk nonsense. Is your brain filled with sh*t? Have you heard of the story of the farmer and the snake? Oh, you definitely haven't heard of it. It's about a snake that was saved by someone, but in the end, it bit the person who saved it. The next time you're in danger, let's see who will save you. Do you still remember the feeling of waiting for death? Xiao Xian blabbered on and on. He noticed that there were other people around, and most of them were with this brat. They had just arrived and were observing the situation. Xiao Xian had to tell them the truth and his grievances. If the other party still tried to kill him, then they could only fight or fly away with Cha-Cha. The person was stunned by Xiao Xian's words. Although he didn't understand a lot of the words Xiao Xian said, it didn't stop him from understanding the general meaning. Did he really do something wrong? After speaking, Xiao Xian snorted heavily, angry and disappointed. He walked to Cha-Cha's side and said, In the future, we'll stay away from your tribe and don't interact with ungrateful people like you. Do you know what it means to be ungrateful? Forget it. It's useless to talk to you. Cha-Cha, let's go. Wait. The person waiting in the forest quickly walked out and stopped Xiao Xian, who was about to jump onto the bird's back. The person who walked out was an adult and a child. The adult was a very sturdy man. Like the brat next to him, his eyes were yellowish-brown. However, the little girl standing next to him had blackish-brown eyes. She didn't look as fierce and gave people a feeling of gentleness. Seeing the person who walked out, the person whose hands were tied up said happily, Father! However, before he could rejoice for long, the person strode over and grabbed the animal skin shirt in front of his chest. He was lifted up and slapped a few times. The slaps were quite heavy. Xiao Xian, this kind of fierceness in educating children was too similar to the Yinjiao tribe. Everything had to be done after a beating. It was just that he didn't know if all tribes had this kind of barbaric style. She was already out of strength and had been beaten up by her father. She sniffled and did not dare to cry. She only looked rather aggrieved. The sturdy man who walked over didn't care about him and threw the person who was beaten up to the side. Shui Lan, look after him. Okay. The girl who was following behind quickly replied. After beating up his child, the sturdy man looked at Xiao Xian and restrained the fierceness in his eyes. He tried his best to show a kind smile. However, no matter how he smiled, his eyes still gave people a cold feeling. I'm really sorry. Little brother, were you the one who saved Chunjia? Oh, he is Chunjia, my child. My name is Fu Shi. The sturdy man said to Xiao Xian. That's right, I saved him. Xiao Xian sighed. It was my first time leaving the tribe, so I wanted to wander around and see the world. In the end, the first person I met was actually Sai. Xiao Xian told the story of how he met Chunjia, how he saved Chunjia, and how Chunjia, this little rascal, treated him. He didn't lie at all. Xiao Xian only came over when Chunjia's hands were tied up, so he didn't know what happened before. Therefore, Xiao Xian explained everything in detail. Moreover, he fully played the role of a friendly and kind ignorant person who went out to wander around. After listening to Xiao Xian's story, Fu Shi clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. He glared at Chun Jia fiercely. His eyes seemed to say, "See if I don't teach you a lesson when we get back." Chun Jia couldn't help but shrink back. When Fu Shi turned back to look at Xiao Xian, his face revealed a smile, and he hurriedly apologized. He didn't forget to explain for his child. He's not usually like this. It's just that recently, some things were lost in the tribe, and we couldn't catch the thief, so he became this crazy? Xiao Xian glanced at Chun Jia. If it wasn't for his quick hands and ability to deal with it, if it was someone else, how could saving Chun Jia's life only to have their arms twisted and broken? Obviously, Fu Shi also knew that his son was in the wrong. The tribe's reputation was already bad, and the shaman had always told everyone to be friendly to outsiders. But in the end, not long after, his own child gave his savior a killing blow, simply asking for a beating. Knowing that Xiao Xian didn't know anything about the outside world, he said, "This is the drumming tribe. We are all from the drumming tribe." Drumming tribe? Xiao Xian really hadn't heard of it. "I come from the Yinjiao tribe." Xiao Xian looked at the other party and said while observing Fu Shi's expression. Fu Shi frowned and thought carefully, but he really couldn't remember. He simply couldn't find anything related to the Yinjiao tribe in his memories. "Your tribe should be very far away, right?" Fu Shi asked. "Very far. I took a boat and stayed on the river for more than 20 days before arriving here," Xiao Xian said. Chun Jia, who was beaten up and thrown to the side, was about to say something when Shui Lan lightly kicked him. Only then did he swallow the words he was about to say. Fu Shi also seemed to be thinking about the possibility of what he said. Xiao Xian knew that their biggest suspicion was that he stayed on the river for more than 20 days. It seemed that he would have to explain more about this later. Although he was also suspicious, Fu Shi still warmly invited Xiao Xian to go back to the tribe with him. He said that he wanted to receive him properly, thank him for saving his child, and also apologize on behalf of his child. Looking at the sky, Xiao Xian agreed. He knew that the other party wanted to confirm his identity again, but Xiao Xian also thought about how to deal with them. Compared to leaving now, it was better to go back to the drumming tribe with them. He could also learn more about the situation here from them. Xiao Xian and Cha-Cha followed behind them and walked towards the central area of the drumming tribe. On the way, they met other drumming tribesmen. Their clothing and weapons were actually not much different from the Yinjiao tribe. At most, they were just a little more meticulous. Xiao Xian also discovered that there were two types of drumming tribesmen on the way. One type was like Chun Jia and Fu Shi, with yellow-brown eyes that looked very fierce. The other type was like the girl Shui Lan, with black-brown eyes that were gentler. Compared to the former, they gave off a more harmless feeling. After walking through a forest, many buildings appeared in front of Xiao Xian's eyes. Because the ground was very wet, there were many places with pools. Therefore, most of the buildings here were piled up, while the upper floors were built with dry railings. In front of many houses, on the lower steps of the stairs, there were some arm-length crocodiles lying on top of them resting. Chapter 155. This was a place with many crocodiles, and the marks Xiao Xian saw on the rocks by the pond should have been made by crocodiles. However, those frightening crocodiles lived together with the people of the tribe. They seemed to be very harmonious. What was more interesting was that Xiao Xian noticed the coldness in the eyes of the tribesmen when they looked at people. It was as if there was no emotion, only ferocious. Their vertical pupils were very similar to crocodiles. Were these people or crocodiles? Xiao Xian had never seen anyone other than the Yinjiao tribe. After coming to this world, he had only been moving around on the other side of the river, so he didn't know much about this world. Even though he had read the animal skin scrolls left behind by his ancestors, many of the records were not detailed, and he even had to rely on guessing. As for what the real world was like outside the tribe, Xiao Xian had to see it for himself. Cha-Cha didn't fly into the sky because Fu Shi said that the tribesmen were very vigilant against birds in the sky. So, before getting permission from the tribe, they shouldn't fly into the sky. Otherwise, once they landed at a low altitude, they would be mercilessly attacked by the tribesmen. For this reason, Cha-Cha could only follow behind, step by step. Some of the small crocodiles resting on the steps or by the pond quickly climbed back into the water when Xiao Xian and Cha-Cha came over. They swung their tails hard and quickly sank into the pond. Seeing Xiao Xian staring at the small crocodiles, Fu Shi said, "The treasure fish are very vigilant against outsiders. Fortunately, the big ones have already left, so there are only these small ones. Otherwise, you would be in more danger. Outsiders shouldn't wander around. If you want to go out, you must be accompanied by tribesmen. Otherwise, you will be easily attacked." Fu Shi told Xiao Xian about the things to pay attention to in the drumming tribe, including the temperament of the crocodiles. Listening to Fu Shi's explanation, Xiao Xian was relieved. Fortunately, these people weren't crocodiles. They were just living in harmony with crocodiles. They even called crocodiles treasure fish, which showed how important these crocodiles were to the tribesmen. Xiao Xian also warned Cha-Cha not to eat these little crocodiles as food. Otherwise, the people of the drumming tribe would come over and punish them. It might even lead to a fierce battle. Just like the people in the tribe, there were two types of crocodiles. One had yellowish-brown eyes, dark brown scales on its back, and a light yellow belly. The smaller crocodiles were slightly lighter in color, with some black spots or net-like patterns. Even the baby crocodiles had carapaces that extended from their backs to their tails. Some of them even had horns on their heads. Xiao Xian had never seen anything like that in his previous life. This kind of yellow-brown-eyed crocodile was very strong in its adult form. It had a violent temperament and was very aggressive. If an outsider walked around the tribe and encountered this kind of crocodile, they would be attacked by it. As for the other type of crocodile with dark brown eyes, its carapace was not so obvious, and it looked a little longer. Their tempers were gentler, and their eyes were less fierce. They looked just like the people in the tribe with dark brown eyes, and they looked more harmless. It seemed that this was the kind of tribe that worshipped animals. Xiao Xian remembered Fu Shi's words in his heart. Although the parents of these little crocodiles were not here, they would be back soon. In this unfamiliar place, he had to be careful. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to return alive. Looking at these crocodiles, Xiao Xian thought of the move that Shun Jia had used on him. Wasn't it similar to the crocodile's death roll? After entering the core area of the tribe, Fu Shi did not directly bring Xiao Xian to his home. Instead, he first went to the chief's place. Presumably, someone had already passed the news on the way. Outside the chief's house, there were a few people curiously looking at Xiao Xian and Cha-Cha. However, those pairs of eyes still looked cold, making Cha-Cha uncomfortably shake its wings. Several times it wanted to fly, but fortunately, Xiao Xian calmed it down. The chief of the drumming tribe, Fan Mu, was a strong middle-aged man. His eyes were also yellow-brown. When he looked at Xiao Xian, it was like a fierce beast in the forest staring at him. There was a sense of majesty and oppression. "Welcome to the drumming tribe." Fan Mu looked at Xiao Xian and said. There was no smile on Fan Mu's face. Of course, not smiling was also good. At least it was better than Fu Shi's emotionless smile. Yinjiao tribe, Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian introduced himself. This was what Xiao Xian had asked the shaman before he left. After leaving the tribe, he would show up as Xiao Xian. "Its name is Cha-Cha, but my friend doesn't like to stand on the ground all the time. I hope you can allow it to fly for a while." Xiao Xian said, "Okay." Fan Mu signaled to the people beside him, telling them not to attack Cha-Cha, but at the same time to keep an eye on it. After Cha-Cha flew into the sky, Xiao Xian stepped on the stairs and followed Fan Mu into the house. In the house, there was a man with dark brown eyes who looked older than Fan Mu. "This is the shaman of our tribe," Fan Mu introduced. "Hello, I am Xiao Xian from the Yinjiao tribe. Welcome to the drumming tribe," the shaman of the drumming tribe said. There was a trace of a smile on his face, which made him feel more amiable. The same words, when spoken by the shaman in front of him, made him feel more comfortable than when spoken by Fan Mu. Moreover, when the shaman smiled, he didn't have that stiff and intimidating feeling. The shaman was very similar to the old faker. He looked approachable and easy to talk to, but in fact, he was more cunning than anyone else. No matter what Xiao Xian thought in his heart, he still showed a reserved smile on his face, fully playing the role of a newcomer who left the tribe for the first time. Fu Shi, who led Xiao Xian here, was also called in by Fan Mu and told him what happened when he met Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian added some things that Fu Shi couldn't explain clearly. Hearing that Xiao Xian had stayed on the river for more than 20 days, Fan Mu and the shaman's expressions changed. "How did you stay on the river for more than 20 days? The shaman asked. "Boat, oars, and cha-cha." Xiao Xian told them some things he saw on the river, and some strange and dangerous phenomena, but he didn't mention the sail. Having a boat and an eagle pulling the boat was enough. With Xiao Xian's narration, Fan Mu and the shaman's expressions gradually eased. Obviously, they knew something about the river and knew that Xiao Xian wasn't lying. Moreover, in their opinion, Xiao Xian was really lucky to come out of such a dangerous situation safely. However, the cha-cha also contributed a lot. If they also had such a bird that could pull the boat, they should be able to go further, right? I remember that wooden boats will sink when they are far away from the riverbank. Why didn't yours? Fan Mu stared at Xiao Xian and asked, "Won't the wood sink when you reach the riverbank? In our tribe, even on the shore, once the wood enters the water, it will soon be dragged to the bottom of the river. Our tribe has a treasure fish," Fu Shi said proudly. Because there were many crocodiles near the riverbank, there were few other creatures, so the wood thrown into the water wouldn't be dragged down by the insects that gnawed on the wood. "Then how did you do it?" Fan Mu asked. "Because it was the rainy season in our tribe. After the rainy season, there were no insects in the river, so the boat could go into the river. When the water level rose again, the insects would come back." "How could that be?" Xiao Xian's words surprised several people in the room. "Our tribe's shaman asked me to take this with me." Xiao Xian took out the stone with the tribe's two-horn totem pattern and handed it to the shaman of the drumming tribe in front of him. The totem pattern drawn by the shaman was special. As a shaman, he could feel the totem power used when drawing it, as well as the emotions the shaman wanted to express. It was indeed friendly and warm. Cha-Cha also has it. Xiao Xian walked to the door and whistled. The walkway outside the chief's house was much wider than others, and the planks were very strong. Cha-Cha landed on the walkway outside the house. The shaman of the drumming tribe carefully looked at the totem pattern on Cha-Cha's feet and confirmed what Xiao Xian said just now. This bird was also blessed by the Yinjiao tribe's shaman. People or things that could be blessed by the tribe's shaman were all valued by the tribe. It was also hard to fake. Moving his hand away from Cha-Cha's claws, the shaman nodded to the chief Fan Mu. The chief's cold eyes softened a little. After talking for a while, the shaman and the chief's suspicions about Xiao Xian had been greatly reduced. They had never heard of the Yinjiao tribe, but after talking, the shaman of the drumming tribe took the initiative to express his sincere enthusiasm. Hearing that it was Xiao Xian's first time out of the tribe, the shaman suggested that Xiao Xian stay for a while. After the Water Moon Festival, there will be people from the tribe going to other tribes to trade. You can go with them, the shaman said. The people next to him wanted to say something, but the shaman raised his hand to stop them. Then it settled. "Fu Shi, Xiao Xian will stay with you for the time being," the chief said. The chief's words settled this matter. The others didn't say anything more, but they still looked at Xiao Xian with vigilance. "Okay," Fu Shi replied. After leaving the chief's house, Fu Shi took Xiao Xian home. Generally, outsiders were taken care of by whoever brought them in. Besides, Xiao Xian had saved Chunjia's life, so Fu Shi and the others had to take good care of him. The sky gradually darkened, and the surroundings were damp with water vapor. The two moons in the sky kept the ground from being too dark. As the moons became rounder, even in the middle of the night, the surrounding scenery could be seen. Fu Shi's house was also built in the style of a fence built next to a pool. When Xiao Xian arrived, a woman was waiting there. That was Fu Shi's wife, Ping. Next to Ping was Chunjia, who was standing there obediently. His face was swollen. Obviously, he had been beaten up again. Ping also showed her enthusiasm, but when she smiled, it made people feel uncomfortable. Her eyes were the same as Fu Shi's and Chunjia's, yellowish-brown. "Xiao Xian, right? Thank you for saving my family's Chunjia." After speaking, Ping carried down a large pile of things from a table outside the house. Everyone in the house hadn't eaten dinner yet. They had been waiting for Fu Shi and Xiao Xian. Since the two of them had returned, Ping also prepared feast. Xiao Xian only saw a shadow flash in front of him, and a whole deer leg was placed in front of him. The deer leg had been roasted, but it wasn't cooked. When the meat was torn open, blood flowed out. He raised his head to look at the other three. This family of three, their mouths had doubled in size. They were holding the food and tearing it apart. When they bit, blood spilled out, splattering all over the table. Xiao Xian. Chapter 156. Xiao Xian only ate a little of the deer leg and gave the rest to Cha-Cha. Cha-Cha liked to eat raw meat. The deer should be of the same breed as the giant horned deer. Their meat tasted similar. After seeing the way the three of them ate, Xiao Xian had a new understanding of the people of this tribe. At night, Cha-Cha found a big tree outside and slept while standing on it. Xiao Xian slept in Chunjia's room, while Chunjia slept with his parents. The people of the drumming tribe did not put animal skins in their houses during this season. They slept directly on wooden planks, and through the gaps between the planks, they could see the water below. There were small crocodiles swimming below, and the subtle movements in the pond could be clearly heard. The windows were open, and the moonlight shone in. The wind carried the smell of water vapor and mud. This was the first night Xiao Xian spent after leaving the tribe, and it was a very novel feeling. Just as he was thinking about today's events, and about the drumming tribe, which was not recorded in the ancestral scroll, Fu Shi came in. Fu Shi was holding a glowing object in his hand. It was like a small lamp, illuminating the small room. Xiao Xian was very curious about the object in Fu Shi's hand. It was a fist-sized, glowing crystal. Xiao Xian had never seen it before in the Yinjia tribe. This is a water moonstone produced by our tribe. Fu Shi handed the stone in his hand to Xiao Xian. Water moonstone was seen in the scroll, but it was not recorded in detail, only a name. It was cold to the touch. Xiao Xian felt the energy within the stone. It was similar to the energy of a fire seed. The totemic flame in his mind did not react, but the egg wrapped around the totemic flame flashed. A shape gradually formed inside the totemic flame. It was a brown crocodile surrounded by a circle of white flames, giving people a cold feeling. This was the totem of the drumming tribe. There was no energy in the crystal that could be absorbed. When the crocodile totem in his mind disappeared, Xiao Xian looked at the crystal again and handed it back to Fu Shi. It's very bright and beautiful. Fu Shi was stunned. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Many people would reveal a look of fondness or greed after seeing the water moonstones. When a guest came to the tribe, the person in charge of receiving them would take out their own water moonstones. Not every tribe liked the night, so in order to be a good host, they would take out the biggest water moonstones they had in their collection. At the same time, this was also a good way to test people, which was something that the shaman had always advocated. But now, Xiao Xian's reaction was neither light nor heavy. Could it be that he didn't know the value of water moonstones? You don't like water moonstones? Our tribe's water moonstones are sold well. It's only this big. You can exchange it for a lot of things. Fu Shi exaggeratedly opened his arms and gestured. As someone who had seen electric lights, Xiao Xian did not have much interest in these glowing stones. What made him interested was that the shaman of the drumming tribe had mentioned the trade between tribes. Now that Fu Shi brought it up again, Xiao Xian seized the opportunity to ask. Trade, of course. We will take our water moonstones to other tribes and exchange them for other things. A small piece of water moonstone can be exchanged for a lot of things. Fu Shi told Xiao Xian about his tribe's most famous water moonstone. This kind of stone was indeed very popular with other tribes. It only needed a small piece to emit light. There was no need to light a fire. In the dark, one only needed one of these stones to see the surroundings. It was not afraid of being blown by the wind or flooded. Many people liked it, especially those who were afraid of high-temperature flames. This also reflected the value of the water moonstone. It was like a piece of gold. With it, the people of the drumming tribe could exchange for things they needed, such as good stones, precious herbs, pots, and so on. Every time they traded, they would bring some water moonstones out in exchange for a lot of things. Xiao Xian listened with great interest and asked a few questions from time to time. When it came to his tribe's specialties, Fu Shi was also in high spirits. He explained the production of water moonstones and how to trade them. This was not because Fu Shi was not vigilant, but because many tribes knew about the water moonstones. It was not an absolute secret. They talked until late at night. Xiao Xian let Fu Shi go back. As for the water moonstone, Xiao Xian also let him take it away. With such a bright stone, how could he sleep? If there was an accident, it would be hard to hide. The night was full of danger, but it was also a kind of cover. Other people's houses were dark, but this room was bright. Wasn't this an obvious target? Fu Shi did not know what Xiao Xian was thinking. He only thought that Xiao Xian was a good person. After returning to his room, he praised Xiao Xian to his wife. In return, the couple lectured Chunjia again. The next day, Xiao Xian ate a bloody breakfast and went out. The sun was already out. The small crocodiles in the pool climbed out to bask in the sun. In the pool in front of Chunjia's house, there were 3 small crocodiles. 2 had yellow-brown eyes, and 1 had black-brown eyes. When Cha-Cha landed next to them, she even tried to scare them. The 3 small crocodiles were so scared that they ran back into the pool. Before they entered the pool, Xiao Xian heard their cries. Only the 2 yellow-brown-eyed crocodiles were crying. The other black-brown-eyed crocodile did not make a sound. In other words, its cries were different from other crocodiles. Normal people would not be able to hear it. Xiao Xian thought that all black-brown-eyed crocodiles were like that. However, he found that the black-brown-eyed crocodile in the pool next door made the same cries as other crocodiles. The crocodile in front of the pool was an exception. Because of this, Xiao Xian asked Chunjia, who was kicking water at the side. Chunjia was still a little awkward. His father said that Xiao Xian really did not know anything. He also did not have much interest in the water moonstone. Moreover, the other party had saved him before. When he thought of his own actions, he felt embarrassed. "It can't cry," Chunjia said. "It can't cry?" "Yes, it couldn't cry when it was born. My mother said that it was mute and very pitiful. So every time, she gave a lot of meat to eat, the best meat." When he was in the tribe, Xiao Xian could hear the cries of Night Swallow. Other than high-level totemic warriors, no one else could hear it. Now, Xiao Xian could also hear its cries, but Chunjia could not. Fu Shi and Ping were both intermediate-level totemic warriors. It could be seen from their eyes. Compared to Chunjia's eyes, their eyes were more yellow. This was a characteristic of the drumming tribe. Beginner and intermediate-level totemic warriors could not hear it, but it was unknown if higher-level totemic warriors could hear it. After Cha-Cha left the pool, the black-brown-eyed crocodile climbed out of the pool and continued to bask in the sun. At this time, someone ran over. "Chunjia, where's your father?" the person asked. "In the house." "Fu Shi, come out quickly." The person shouted. "What's wrong?" Fu Shi walked out and asked. "Go over. The chief has something to say." Seeing the other party's dignified expression, Fu Shi knew that the matter was quite serious. He did not hesitate and hurriedly left. Before leaving, he warned Chunjia, "Don't run around. If you run again, I'll beat you to death." Chunjia's mouth twitched, and he reluctantly replied with an "in." Ping was not at home, so there was only Xiao Xian and Chunjia here. Xiao Xian looked at the surrounding families. People were all called out, so something big must have happened. "What happened in your tribe?" Xiao Xian asked. "I don't know, it's probably about the water moonstones," Chunjia said. Thinking about what Fu Shi said last night, Xiao Xian said, "You mean there might have been thieves who stole the water moonstones?" "Yes, every year at this time, there would be people from the tribe who would come and steal the water moonstones when they come out." Mentioning the water moonstones, Chunjia gnashed his teeth. The stolen water moonstones could be exchanged for a lot of things. "Who came to steal the water moonstones?" Xiao Xian asked. "Many other tribes and maybe even thieves. Every time thieves appear, a lot of water moonstones are stolen. They deserve to die the most." In the afternoon, Fu Shi hurried back with some stone tools and warned Xiao Xian and Chunjia not to run around. Someone in the tribe, discovered the drumming tribe. The tribe's defense has been strengthened. Tonight, I'll be in charge of guarding, so I won't be coming back. Don't go out. Finishing his words, Fu Shi hurriedly left. The people in the surrounding houses were like Fu Shi, taking their tools and hurrying out. Every one of them had a dignified expression, their eyes filled with killing intent. Waiting for Fu Shi to leave, Xiao Xian asked Chen Jia, "What are the drumming tribe people like?" Chen Jia showed a rare expression of fear and resentment. The drumming tribe people are crazy. In order to achieve their goals, they will do anything. They are not afraid of death. They are very fast. Listening to Chen Jia's somewhat messy explanation, Xiao Xian speculated that the drumming tribe people were similar to death warriors. In their eyes, there was only the goal. Nothing else was important. They were really a group of lunatics. This group of lunatics was not close to the drumming tribe, so they did not appear often. However, every time they appeared, they would set off a reign of terror. And this time, the drumming tribe's goal was most likely to be the water moonstones. Because the drumming tribe had been discovered, everyone was very nervous. Even during dinner, their appetite had decreased. Ping and Chen Jia did not eat much. After eating, Ping went to deliver food to Fu Shi, telling Chen Jia to stay at home obediently. However, Chen Jia was not a person who would wait at home. When other companions came to look for him, he would leave with them to discuss their own plans. Thus, the only one left in the house was Xiao Xian. The sky had not completely darkened yet. Xiao Xian sat on a wooden plank beside the house. Sitting on it, his legs hung down, allowing him to directly reach into the water. The water rippled, and a figure swam toward Xiao Xian. It was a small crocodile with dark brown eyes. After it swam over, it looked at Xiao Xian. It seemed to be very curious about Xiao Xian and did not show any signs of fear. After thinking for a while, Xiao Xian reached out his hand and picked up the small crocodile. It had webbed toes, and, compared to the other two, it was slimmer. Just now, when he saw it crawl and swim, it was very agile. Other than its cries that could not be heard, it was completely healthy. After being caught, the small crocodile did not run away. It obediently stayed in Xiao Xian's hand. Its temper was indeed much gentler than the one with dark brown eyes. Xiao Xian thought. After observing it for a while, Xiao Xian put it back into the water. Chapter 157. That night, Ping and Chen Jia did not return. Fu Shi needed to continue guarding and would not return for the whole night. After Cha-Cha threw down a deer he caught from God knows where, he found a tree to eat and rest. Xiao Xian was the only one in the house. Xiao Xian could not walk around. Now that the drumming tribe was in a tense period, as an outsider, Xiao Xian could not run around and attract suspicion. As a newcomer, it was better to make a good impression. If there was a day when the Yinjiao tribesmen could smoothly cross over from the other side of the river, they would inevitably greet the drumming tribesmen. Xiao Xian crossed his legs and rested on the wooden planks in the room. As Xiao Xian swayed his legs, the wooden planks below him creaked slightly. As he was thinking, Xiao Xian heard a few humming sounds coming from outside. It sounded like someone was pinching their nose. These sounds were not made by humans, but by the small crocodiles. Listening to the sounds, it came from the pond where Chen Jia's family lived. It was just that it was not near the house. After a few short cries, the cries came to an abrupt end, but very quickly more cries came out. Only, the cries after that were different from the ones before. The one who made the last sound was the brown-eyed small crocodile that was thought to be mute. The surrounding small crocodiles did not often cry out. They only cried out when they felt threatened or when they felt danger. For example, the 3 small crocodiles that Cha-Cha had teased that day had all cried out. The tribesmen said that these small crocodiles were very sensitive to likes and dislikes. Even if you smiled and looked very kind, if you had bad intentions, these small crocodiles would still avoid you or directly bite you. At this time, what exactly did the 3 small crocodiles in the pond encounter that caused them to cry out like that? The sounds outside continued. Xiao Xian got up and looked outside. He did not see anything out of the ordinary, but somewhere in the pond, the cries continued. The other tribesmen should not be able to hear its cries. If other small crocodiles continued to cry out like this, someone would have already come to check on the situation. After thinking for a while, Xiao Xian walked out of the house and headed towards the source of the cries. On the side of the pond, not far from Chun Jia's house, two small crocodiles lay motionless in the grass. There was the smell of blood. Xiao Xian squatted down and used his hands to push the two small crocodiles over. Their light-colored abdomens show obvious traces of blood, as if they had been split in half. They were killed with a single blow from a sharp weapon. The roar just now, it should be these two small crocodiles. After a few cries, it suddenly stopped. It was at that time that they encountered the killer. The two little crocodiles died in the same way. They were killed in a single blow. They were extremely fast and almost didn't make sound. He was flipping one of the crocodiles open when he heard hurried footsteps, followed by an angry roar. What did you do to them? It was a 15 or 16-year-old girl with tawny eyes. Thinking of this kind of person's impatience and temper, Xiao Xian was about to explain, but when she saw the crocodiles lying on the ground, she exploded. You're looking for death. She seemed to have gone crazy, not giving Xiao Xian a chance to explain. Even if Xiao Xian spoke, she would not listen. The totem patterns on her body appeared, and she exerted strength in her legs, increasing her speed in an instant. Her whole body flew through the air towards Xiao Xian. As she pounced, her entire hand doubled in size, turning into a claw. Combined with the totem patterns on her hand, it looked as if it was covered with a layer of scales. Her fingertips also emitted a crisp sound. Like a ruthless beast, she mercilessly clawed at Xiao Xian. If he did not dodge, this slender hand would latch onto Xiao Xian's arm. Then, like a crocodile biting onto its prey, she would twist and tear his arm off. In the face of such a vicious attack, Xiao Xian reached out and grabbed her wrist before she could grab his arm. However, he did not stop. Instead, he took the opportunity to pull her to the side of the pool. Splash! She was flung into the pond. The surrounding people had already heard the commotion and came out. Under such a tense situation, with roars and the sound of someone falling into the water, it would be strange if they did not notice. The surrounding families, regardless of gender, ran out with tools and surrounded Xiao Xian. The children were not allowed to come out. They only stuck their heads out of their windows or doors to look over. On the grass beside the pond, the two dead crocodiles were very conspicuous. The people of the drumming tribe had always paid attention to crocodiles, so the two crocodiles next to them attracted their attention even more. Originally, they thought it was just a quarrel between two parties, but after seeing the two dead crocodiles, the people who surrounded them became angry. For Xiao Xian, an outsider, the surrounding families had always been on guard against him. They did not allow their children to come in contact with Xiao Xian. There were several times when their children were curious about the eagle and wanted to go over to take a look, but the adults made up stories to scare them. Now, with this scene in front of them, it was needless to say. I didn't kill them, Xiao Xian said. If it wasn't you, who else could it be? It must be him. Banling saw it just now. The surrounding people shouted. They looked at Xiao Xian fiercely. Just as they were about to attack, they heard a shout from behind. Stop! Hearing this voice, the person who was about to attack immediately halted his movements and turned to look behind him. There were two people who came over. Xiao Xian recognized one of them. It was Chun, the wife of Fanmu. She was also the one who had shouted for them to stop. As for the young man standing next to her, Xiao Xian did not recognize him. However, the young man had dark brown eyes and gave people the impression that he was calmer. At first glance, he seemed more harmless than the others, but Xiao Xian's intuition told him that this person was more difficult to deal with. What happened? Chun walked over and asked. He killed two small treasured fish. Yes, he even attacked Banling. I already said that outsiders don't have good intentions. We should have kicked him out long ago. The surrounding people began to talk at once, telling him everything that had happened. After listening, Chun did not immediately ask Xiao Xian. Instead, she walked over and picked up the two dead crocodiles. Xiao Xian could feel that Chun's hands were trembling as she held the two crocodiles. She was trying her best to control her emotions. She also had dark brown eyes, but she wasn't as reckless as the others. After looking at the wounds on the crocodiles, Chun asked Xiao Xian, "What do you say?" "I didn't kill them. I just came over and saw that there was something wrong with them. I turned them over and found that they were already dead. When I picked them up to take a look, she came over." Xiao Xian pointed at the person walking out of the pool. "Banling, did you really see him kill the small treasured fish?" Chun stared at the person walking out of the pool and asked in a deep voice. Banling had just been thrown into the water and was still in a sorry state. When asked, she didn't have time to tidy up her hair and said, "I saw him holding the small treasured fish in his hand." In other words, you didn't see Xiao Xian kill the small treasured fish? Chun's tone was not very good, and the surrounding people could hear it. Moreover, after Chun took the 2 crocodiles, many people saw the wounds on the crocodiles. They knew that they were killed by a sharp weapon. Xiao Xian didn't have such a weapon on him. Perhaps they really had wrongly accused him. Thinking of their actions just now, the people surrounding Xiao Xian all retreated in embarrassment. The people who had shouted especially loudly now wished they could bury their heads in their pants to reduce their presence. But there were also some people who were unconvinced. They felt that judging Xiao Xian wasn't the murderer based on a single wound was too arbitrary. Perhaps Xiao Xian was still hiding some secrets? Thinking of this, they took a step forward and were about to say something when they saw Xiao Xian turn around and walk towards the pool. The surrounding people of the drumming tribe were very curious about Xiao Xian's reaction. What was he doing? Xiao Xian walked to the side of the pool, but he didn't enter it. Instead, he stretched out his hand to the side. Soon, the water rippled and a small figure came out of it. It turned out that there was a small hole there, and it was hiding in it. After swimming out, the small crocodile directly climbed onto Xiao Xian's hand. It was actually crying out, but no one could hear it, including the tribe's senior totemic warrior, Chun. Seeing the small crocodile in Xiao Xian's hand, the person who had stepped forward and wanted to argue retracted his leg. If Xiao Xian was the murderer, this small crocodile wouldn't have acted like this. The people of the drumming tribe didn't believe in Xiao Xian, but they believed in their tribe's treasured fish. Banling. Chun glared. Thinking about what Banling had done, Chun couldn't help but feel angry. The tribe's reputation was already bad enough, but this group of people kept on offending people. Yesterday, Chun Jia had attacked his savior, and now, Banling was attacking people without even knowing the truth. The shamanists and chief were doing their best to salvage the drumming tribe's bad reputation. Outsiders who knew about the drumming tribe were already on guard against them, and it was difficult to form good relations with them. Now that there was an outsider who had never heard of the drumming tribe, the shamanists and chief wanted to keep him here and let Xiao Xian see the good side of the drumming tribe. They also wanted him to know that the people of the drumming tribe weren't as bad as outsiders thought. The result, she was really angry. Fortunately, Xiao Xian's strength wasn't bad. Otherwise, Banling, who had been baring her fangs and brandishing her claws at Xiao Xian, was completely listless. Chun's roar made her shoulders tremble as she took small steps forward, completely losing her previous momentum. Sorry. Banling apologized to Xiao Xian, her voice sounding as if she was about to cry. Xiao Xian, right? I'm sorry, but just treat what I said as if it was eaten by the fish. Don't take it seriously. The one who spoke the loudest just now was the one who spoke the loudest. Perhaps he still felt sorry for Xiao Xian, so he turned around and ran home. After a while, he carried a bloody cow leg and stuffed it into Xiao Xian's hand as an apology. Seeing this, the others also wanted to follow suit. At this time, the person standing beside Chun said, "Mother, the most important thing now is to find the person who killed the fish." Saying this, he looked at the others, his dark brown eyes calmly sweeping the surroundings. Xiao Xian is our tribe's guest. In the future, if anyone dares to make a move without clarifying the situation, come find me. Xiao Xian discovered that after the youth finished speaking, the surrounding people were trembling. They were even more afraid than when Chun had scolded them. Chapter 158. What's wrong? Ping had gone to deliver food to Fu Shi and talk to the guard for a while. She had just returned But before she entered the house, she saw people surrounding the pond and quickly walked over. Ping, 2 treasured fish were killed here, a woman with a loud voice said. Ping was shocked. After hearing the details, she wanted to tear the murderer into pieces. Unfortunately, the murderer was still unknown. When she heard that Xiao Xian was misunderstood again, she was very dissatisfied. Xiao Xian is a good person. He doesn't even want my water moon stone. What? There is actually someone who didn't like the water moon stone. The surrounding people suddenly felt that Xiao Xian was too safe. Those who wanted to steal the water moonstones in their tribe were not good people. Compared to them, Xiao Xian was an outsider who was not interested in the water moonstones. Everyone suddenly felt more comfortable around him. But thinking about it, how could Xiao Xian not like the water moonstone? It was such a good thing. Why didn't he like it? Xiao Xian, the water moonstone is really good. You can exchange it for many things in other tribes. Yes, Xiao Xian, it must be because Fu Shi's water moonstone is small and dark. Maybe it's an old stone that has been there for a few years. Come to my house. Our water moonstone is big and bright. We just fished it out last year. If it comes out this year, there will definitely be bigger ones. Come to my house. My water moonstone is big too. My daughter personally put away last year. All right, my daughter is over there. She's very pretty. Xiao Xian, you will definitely like her. The auntie who spoke narrowed her eyes and pointed in the direction of her house. Xiao Xian looked in the direction the auntie was pointing at. There was a young lady standing on the steps of a house. At this moment, the lady was smiling at him with her mouth wide open from ear to ear. Probably because she had just eaten dinner, there were still traces of blood on her white teeth. It was really a big mouth. Ha! Xiao Xian turned his head and smiled stiffly. Fortunately, this was not the time to talk too much. Chun took away the 2 dead crocodiles and told everyone to pay attention to the surroundings. Also, pay attention to the small crocodiles in the pools around their houses. Xiao Xian returned to the house covered in blood, holding the beef leg. Although he had been wronged twice, he really didn't know what to do with this group of people. After all, he wasn't injured. Moreover, Xiao Xian wanted to follow them to learn more about other tribes. Now that the drumming tribe also wanted to leave a good impression on them, Xiao Xian wouldn't quarrel with them because of this. Ping looked at the baby crocodile in Xiao Xian's hand and felt sad. She had watched them break out of their shells. When they broke out of their shells because the big crocodile had already left, she had personally helped them break out of their shells. Many people in the drumming tribe were rash and irritable, but they were also easily emotional. When they were emotional, they would talk a lot. After Ping returned, she told Xiao Xian a lot about the little crocodiles. The current batch of crocodiles in the tribe were not born during the breeding season, so they were in the minority. Without the protection of the big crocodiles, these little crocodiles were easily harmed. Therefore, every year the people in the tribe would take special care of these little crocodiles. Generally speaking, the big crocodiles that had left would return here after the 2 moons overlapped and the river rose again. They would then lay eggs and hatch their young. At that time, a large number of baby crocodiles would be born. Seeing that only one of the 3 little crocodiles was left, Ping started crying as she spoke. At this time, Chunjia also returned home. To distract Ping, Xiao Xian brought the brown-eyed baby crocodile back to the room. Now that he had calmed down, he carefully recalled the movements he had heard before, as well as the details he saw when he walked to the pool. Although this was not the core area of the drumming tribe, there were still many houses. Other than the people guarding outside, how could there be people walking around outside? How could a fearsome beast sneak in from outside without a sound? If it was not done by an internal member, then the person who killed the 2 little crocodiles was too capable. The little crocodile that Xiao Xian brought back was still crying out. It was probably scared stiff and did not want to return to the pool. Instead, it kept following Xiao Xian. The 3 little crocodiles were from the same nest and often moved together. Even if they were separated, they would not be too far apart. The people in the tribe said that these little crocodiles were very sensitive to people's likes and dislikes. Perhaps they discovered that person, which was why they cried out. They were also killed because of their cries, because if they were allowed to cry out, it would attract other people's attention. Now, The crocodile that could cry out was dead, and the mute in front of him saved its life. After comforting his mother, Chunjia was beaten up again. He came to Xiao Xian and asked, "When you went over, you only saw the little fish that was killed. Did you really not see anyone?" Xiao Xian raised his head and looked at Chunjia. This child had been beaten up because he ran around at night, but this injury was nothing to them. "I didn't see any strangers," Xiao Xian said. Although he was not familiar with the surrounding families, he had seen them once and had an impression of them. At that time, he did not see anyone else around, and before that, he did not notice any strangers around. Not necessarily strangers. For example, someone familiar? Chenjia was somewhat conflicted. He was not good at hiding his thoughts, and his expression told Xiao Xian what this child was thinking. As an outsider, Xiao Xian would not easily talk about the matters of the drumming tribe. Instead, he asked, "Yesterday, who pushed you down the river?" Chunjia raised his head in surprise. "How do you know I was pushed?" After coming back, he only told others that he accidentally fell down, but did not tell anyone the truth. "I guessed," Xiao Xian said. Although Chunjia looked unreliable, from many details, this child was still very cautious. It was impossible for him to know that there was danger at the riverbank and still go there. Perhaps the drumming tribe's chief and shaman also knew, but they did not interrogate Chinjia. They might even know more. Those two were not simple-minded people. After hiding the secret in his heart for 2 days, Chinjia felt that he could not hold it in any longer. However, he did not dare to tell the others in the tribe. Just now, when he was outside, he tried to ask his friends about it. Their reactions were very strong, and they felt that it was definitely not someone from the tribe who did it. "So, you think there's a mole?" Xiao Xian asked. "What is a mole?" "It means that the person who did this is someone who is hiding in the tribe." "Yes, since they all said that Xiao Xian was a good person, then he should be able to tell, right?" Chunjia thought to himself. "That day when I sneaked out to play, I saw some people walking toward the riverbank, so I followed them. There were other people there. I heard them talking, but I did not hear what they were saying. After they left, when I walked to the riverbank, I was pushed by someone." Chunjia told Xiao Xian about what happened that day. "What did that person look like?" I don't remember." Chunjia bit his hand, feeling very conflicted. He really tried very hard to think, but he just could not remember. He always felt that the person's face was blurry, but looking at the figure, he really did look like someone from the tribe. If not, he would not have kept this a secret. He really could not remember what that person looked like. Xiao Xian patted Chunjia's shoulder. "If you don't remember, then forget it. Also, don't tell anyone about this. Even if you do, you have to find someone you absolutely trust. For example, your parents. If that mole knows that you know a lot of things, you might end up like the 2 little treasured fish that were killed tonight." "Why?" Chunjia's face was full of fear. "Because they can cry." Xiao Xian also touched the mute little crocodile in his hand, but it can't, so it survived. Chinjiao was not too stupid. After thinking for a while, he understood Xiao Xian's meaning. With a pale face, he said, I'll go find Mother first." Regardless of whether the truth was as Xiao Xian imagined, at least by scaring Chunjia, Chunjia would not run around alone. Otherwise, there was a real possibility that he would be killed. When there are many tribes, it is easy to get chaotic. Don't you think so? Xiao Xian tore off a piece of meat and put it in front of the little crocodile's mouth. The teeth of crocodiles belong to the truncated tooth type. They can't directly bite off a piece of meat like cats, so they have to roll or sway to bite off the meat. This is the familiar death roll and sway dance of the crocodile. Seeing the little crocodile roll around after biting the meat, Xiao Xian thought of the people in the tribe, as well as Caesar and the others. He wondered how they were doing now. When he left the tribe, he didn't think so, but now he missed them. He remembered that on the day he left, Xiao Xian wanted to tell the shaman and old Kun not to worry. In the end, he only said 2 words before they beat him up with their crutches. Thinking of this, Xiao Xian couldn't help but laugh. The moonlight outside the window was even brighter than last night. Soon, it would be the day when the 2 moons overlapped. If he wanted to go back, he would have to wait at least a year. In the next few days, the tribe was very peaceful. There were no more abnormal situations, but Fu Shi and the other tribe guards were even more vigilant. The day when the two moons overlapped was one of the most important days of the year. Other than the sacrificial ceremony, it was also one of the most important days. They called it the Water Moon Festival. In the drumming tribe, there was a small river winding around the tribe. The people of the drumming tribe called it the Water Moon Path. Before and after the two moons overlapped, when the river level lowered, the Water Moon Path would be separated from the river. When the two moons overlapped in the night sky, every family of the drumming tribe would guard the path closest to their house, waiting for the water moonstones to appear so that they could go down to collect them. Even though Xiao Xian was curious about the production of the water moonstones, in order to avoid suspicion, he didn't take the initiative to follow them. However, Ping was very enthusiastic. It was probably because someone said that her family's water moonstones weren't good that night. She wanted to prove it in front of Xiao Xian, so she let Xiao Xian go with her. Fu Shi was responsible for guarding the path, so he didn't go with Ping and Chunjia. My families will definitely be the best this year. Nonsense, my family's is the best. You guys don't need to argue. In any case, the first place will definitely be my family. Before they even reached the Water Moon Path, a group of children had already started arguing. The tribe had given each family an area. When the time came to collect the water moonstones, they could only collect them in their own area. Whether they collected more or less, they had to bear the responsibility. It had nothing to do with others. Xiao Xian, Ping, and Chunjia stood together. This was the area of Chunjia's family. Looking at the muddy river in front of them, which was no more than 5 meters wide, it was hard to associate it with the name Water Moon Path. Xiao Xian was looking forward to what would happen next. Such a bright stone. How did it come out from this muddy river? The two moons overlapped more and more in the sky. Xiao Xian suddenly heard a dense and small sound, as if iron powder was being forcefully attracted by a magnetic force. The muddy river in front of them was becoming clearer and clearer at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chapter 159. Ping and Chunjia stood on the shore, waiting nervously. The amount of water moonstones they could produce in this section would determine whether they would be rich or poor in the coming days. If they could produce a lot of water moonstones, and each of them was big and bright, their family would be rich this year. When the trading day came, they could bring them out to exchange for a lot of things. However, if the stones they produced were small and small, then it would be hard. Whether they were poor or rich, it all depended on this part of the river. Xiao Xian felt that this method was very novel. Ping was already praying nervously. Chunjia was also biting his hands. He liked to bite his hands when he was nervous. The muddy river water became clearer and clearer. In less than 10 minutes, it had already become translucent. There was even light emitting from the bottom of the river. It was even more eye-catching than the moon in the sky. The muddy river gradually became clear. At the bottom of the river, they could see some things emitting light. Those were the water moonstones. The white light passed through the river and reflected in the eyes of the people on the shore. Ah ha ha! So people laughed wildly. Their part of the river was especially bright. This meant that there would be more water moonstones produced there. Some people were happy, while others were worried. Some parts of the river were dimmer than others. There were a lot less water moonstones there. Ha ha ha! Chunjia also laughed arrogantly. Their part of the river was brighter than the other two families. He laughed and made a gesture to the other two families, showing off. Ping knelt by the river bank, watching the white light at the bottom of the river get brighter and brighter. She was so excited that no one knew what she was mumbling. The surrounding families looked at Chunjia and his mother with envy and jealousy. But there was nothing they could do. Whether it was more or less, they had already determined it. Even if they were jealous, they couldn't snatch it. They could only comfort themselves that maybe next year their family would become like that. Xiao Xian felt the power of the fire seed. The fire seed of the drumming tribe? What kind of fire seed was this tribe that lived in the puddles and rivers? In the Yinjiao tribe, the shaman was able to connect the fire seed's power to the houses at the top of the mountain. That was why the houses at the top of the mountain were always warm during the winter. And here, The production of these water moonstones seemed to be closely related to the fire seed of the drumming tribe. No wonder Fu Sure said that this was their drumming tribe's specialty. The power of the fire seed was special. After Ping prayed and expressed her gratitude, she turned to Chinjia, who was already itching to give it a try, and said, "Enter the water." "All right." Chinjia flung off the beast's skin coat on his body, covering his entire body with totem patterns, and jumped into the clear and bright river. Many children from other families were like Chinjia, impatiently jumping into the water to fish for the water moonstones. Xiao Xian noticed that when the children were swimming, their legs weren't alternately kicking the water. Instead, they were swaying left and right. Their bones seemed to have been softened. The totemic patterns covered their bodies like scales. At first glance, it looked like the powerful tail of a crocodile that was swaying in the water. The people of the drumming tribe were good swimmers. Even if they were underwater, they could stay underwater for a long time. Therefore, the work of digging the water moonstones from the bottom of the river was extremely simple for them. As the first stone dug out this year, they had to choose a big one. The people of the drumming tribe believed that a good start would lead to better results. Perhaps there would be more stones as big as this one dug out later. Therefore, the first stone had to be chosen well. Chinjia swam back and forth at the bottom of the river. Finally, he chose a spot and dug out a very big and bright water moonstone. He didn't swim upstream, but turned around and threw it toward the riverbank. The water moonstone that was thrown out of the water was accurately caught by Ping. She wiped the water off the stone and looked at it excitedly. She was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth, and the smile on her face grew wider and wider. After looking at it for a while, Ping didn't put it into the basket at the side. Instead, she handed it to Xiao Xian. "Xiao Xian, look. This is the stone my family produced this year. Isn't it big? Isn't it bright? You can definitely exchange it for many good things." Xiao Xian took it. It was cool to the touch, but it was much brighter than the one Fu Sure showed him that night. This was because it was newly produced. However, Xiao Xian still couldn't absorb any energy from it. He could only feel that this stone was related to the drumming tribe's fire seed and totem. Other than the fire seed and totem, these stones were also closely related to the crocodiles that had followed the river downstream. According to the people of the drumming tribe, when the crocodiles returned, they would spit out some stones from their stomachs into the water moon canal. These stones would eventually become water moonstones. Every year, after the water moonstones were picked out, new stones would enter, and the next year, new stones would be picked up. But without these crocodiles, there wouldn't be any water moonstones here. The people of the drumming tribe didn't know how many stones were spat out by the treasured fish, and which of these stones could become water moonstones. Even if it was artificially changed, the results would be different from what they expected. In the end, they could only pray to the totem, hoping for more gifts. This was also the main reason why the drumming tribe called the crocodiles the treasured fish. Xiao Xian had a classmate in his past life who also raised crocodiles. He also heard that his family's crocodiles ate stones, and the stones they ate were called stomach stones. They were used to help the crocodiles grind down food that was difficult to digest. He wondered if the stones the drumming tribe's crocodiles spat out in the water moon canal were also used as stomach stones. Previously, the most turbid river in the entire tribe actually produced such bright water moonstones. What magical place! After looking, Xiao Xian carefully placed the stone into a rattan basket at the side. Seeing Xiao Xian's actions, Ping's impression of Xiao Xian became even better. She fished out the newly placed stone and stuffed it into Xiao Xian's hands. "Take it. When you go out in the future, you can use it to exchange for many good things. When you go to other tribes to exchange for things you want, you'll know how good water moonstones are." This was the feeling of becoming a nouveau riche. With such a big stone, giving it away didn't hurt at all. Ping didn't say much. After stuffing the stone into Xiao Xian's hands, she hurriedly went to receive the other stones that Chinjia threw up. "Thank you." Xiao Xian put the stone into the animal skin bag and helped Ping look after the rattan basket. Tonight, it was not a peaceful night. Danger was lurking. Not only Xiao Xian, but the people of the drumming tribe were also prepared. Every year at this time, many things would happen. They were already used to it and were ready to fight at any time. That was why they let their children fish for stones, while the adults at home were always vigilant of their surroundings. Once they found anything unusual, they would join in the battle. Not far from the Water-Moon Canal, Fu Shi and his companions were vigilantly watching their surroundings. However, they also wanted to know the situation at the Water-Moon Canal. They didn't know how their own family situation was this year. I feel that my family will definitely have a lot this year. Fu Shi said, my family definitely won't have less than yours. The people beside Fu Shi were not convinced. I don't expect it to be the most, as long as it's not too little. Another person whispered, useless. Sigh. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't decide. So I don't have much hope. As they were talking, the people who came to investigate the situation at the Water-Moon Canal came over. Fu Shi, your family is rich this year. That part of your house is the brightest, the man said while panting. Fu Shi was so excited that he couldn't wait to jump a few rounds. This is great. And when the time comes to trade, I'll get more good things. I'll get a few beautiful clothes for Ping and a few bitter stone tools for Chunjia. These people were like Fu Shi. Although their family didn't have as much as Fu Shi's family this year, it was still quite a lot. When the time comes to trade, what should they get? Just as they were thinking, Fu Shi's face froze. The muscles under his skin suddenly swelled, causing his already sturdy body to become even thicker. Black totem patterns covered his entire body like sturdy scales. His legs instantly exploded with a powerful force, and he disappeared from a spot. In one step, he caught up with the person who wanted to rush over. Fu Shi's swollen arms were instantly raised high. His arms were covered with totem patterns, and every muscle was filled with power. His skin became even tighter under the expansion of his muscles. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and he quickly smashed towards the person. Like a cannonball, his fist smashed onto the person's body. Bang! The person who was about to rush out was smashed to the ground with all his strength. Just as the first fist landed, the second fist followed. Ka! Fu Shi's fist directly smashed the other person's head. The person lying on the ground had different totem patterns from the drumming tribe. Because of the death of the main body, they quickly disappeared. The sound of Fu Shi's breathing was not the usual sound of wheezing, but a series of rough grunts. His pupils were like the tip of a sword, and some dense black patterns extended from there to the surroundings. His eyes flashed coldly. After killing one person, Fu Shi did not stop. The muscles in his legs suddenly swelled, and his originally low body suddenly fell to the ground. His palms and legs vigorously slammed the ground, and his body quickly pushed out, rushing towards another person. The wet, muddy water under his feet splashed everywhere. Competing with a crocodile in long-distance running was possible, but competing with it in an instant was difficult. The advantage of a crocodile was not speed, but reaction and explosive power. You might be able to outrun them, but the problem was whether they gave you a chance to run at the start of the race. Perhaps, before you could run, they had already bitten you. The people of the drumming tribe had many characteristics similar to crocodiles. They were strong, and their speed was not fast. But in an instant, their opponents would always be overwhelmed. Another person was clamped down by Fu Shi, and in the next moment he was twisted in the middle. Just now, the 2 people who passed by were too fast and did not give Fu Shi enough time to send a message to the others. Now, after dealing with 2 opponents in succession, Fu Shi took advantage of this gap and roared from his throat like an ancient beast. The roar passed through the wet area, through the forest, like a war knife, splitting the silence of the night. The moon in the sky shone brightly, but under the moonlight, the battle had already begun. Chapter 160. Fu Shi's roar made everyone understand that tonight's slaughter had already begun. The people guarding the outer perimeter had already started fighting with the invaders. Roars, collisions, and screams filled the air. At the same time, the people on the shore of the Water-Moon Canal also increased their speed. Since the battle on the outer perimeter had begun, the warriors there would naturally be strict defenses. However, no one knew if the defensive line would be broken through. Moreover, This time, the invaders were from the drumming tribe. These people were simply rushing to die, completely crazy. Take advantage of the fact that they haven't arrived yet. Hurry up and get the water moonstones. Saying this, Ping felt that Chunjia alone was too slow. She looked at the bottom of the river where her family was, and then at the other families. The other families had already sent people to help, but her family only had Chunjia alone. This year, their family had more water moonstones than the others. If this continued, they would definitely take longer to fish. This was not good. Once time passed, the water moonstones would become darker and darker, until they became ordinary stones. So they had to speed up. Looking at Xiao Xian beside her, Ping said, "Xiao Xian, I'll go down with Chunjia to fish for the water moonstones. When the time comes, we'll throw them up. You stay here and catch them." "Okay, no problem." Ping jumped into the water and quickly swam to the bottom of the river, digging for the water moonstones with Chunjia. Some of the water moonstones on the surface of the river had already been thrown ashore by Chunjia, leaving behind some that were partially buried in the mud. Xiao Xian placed the stones thrown by Ping and Chunjia into the rattan basket. Because of the water moonstones inside, the rattan basket emitted a bright white light. However, because the rattan basket was surrounded by a layer of animal skin, the light only shone from the top of the rattan basket, not from the bottom of the basket. Catching the water moonstones thrown ashore and placing them into the rattan basket, Xiao Xian also paid attention to the sounds of fighting in the distance. There seemed to be quite a few people coming. However, because of the robbing and theft of the water moonstones every year, the drumming tribe was well prepared. There shouldn't be any big problems. As the water moonstones were fished out one by one, the light in the water moon canal became darker and darker. About half an hour later, there was basically no light left in the canal. On the shore, there were rattan baskets emitting light. But now, no one was happy because of the water moonstones that they had fished out. Instead, they were very worried. "Looks like we won't be able to defend against it," an older man said. "Someone will always come. Fortunately, we've already fished out the water moonstones. Otherwise, they would have taken advantage of us again," a woman said fiercely. Similar things had happened in the past. The guards at the outer layer might not be able to stop all the intruders, and some of the people who rushed into the tribe would steal the water moonstones that had not been fished out from the water moon channel. The totem patterns on the body of the elder who had spoken earlier appeared. He jumped into the water and swam to the other side of the channel. He lowered his body slightly. He waited for a moment. Then he took a step forward. His legs instantly exploded with power, leaving deep footprints on the ground. His body suddenly soared into the sky and rushed out like lightning. The wide animal skin clothes on his body fluttered because of the change in the airflow. A figure quickly came out from the forest. Before he could react, he was hit by a punch and the bones in his chest cracked. The person who hadn't died was still struggling. But in the next moment, a large hand with sharp claws pressed down on his heart. Pucci! The hand directly penetrated and crushed the intruder's heart. From the moment the elder moved to the moment he killed the intruder, everything happened in a very short time. Although it looked like a simple fight, it was in fact not so. Xiao Xian realized that after killing the intruder, the elder was panting heavily. If they couldn't kill the intruder in an instant, the longer the battle dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Other than the moment they started a charge, their speed was slower than the intruder's. If the intruder successfully stole the water moonstone and escaped, the people here might not be able to catch up to him. Someone came so quickly? Ping looked worried. In the past few years, there were people who could rush here at this time. But this year, the tribe had made a lot of preparations. There were also many barriers set up outside. Originally, they thought that they could delay for a little longer to give the water moon channel more time to prepare and settle down. But now, it seemed that things were worse than they thought. "Quickly let the children take the water moonstones back," the elder said. Actually, even if he didn't say it, the others could also guess the current situation. Putting the last water moonstone into the rattan basket, Ping wrapped the animal skin around the basket and tied it with a straw rope. The originally dazzling white light was completely blocked. Passing the rattan basket to Chunjia, Ping said, "Quickly take the water moonstones back." Chunjia didn't say anything more. This kind of thing he had encountered many times since he was young. Mother, carrying the rattan basket and walking a few steps, Chunjia looked back at Ping and shouted, "Go back. Be smart. You must hide well." Ping exhorted, and the surrounding families were in the same situation. They let the children take the water moonstones back, while the adults stood guard here. Ping and the surrounding families were the same. The adults, no matter male or female, would all stand guard here. With the water moon channel as the boundary, this was the second line of defense. After this, it would be the tribe's residence. "I'll stay here to help you," Xiao Xian said. "No, Xiao Xian, you take Chunjia and the others back. You must be careful to hide well. There will definitely be many people from the drumming tribe coming this time. They won't let go of any opportunity. If someone rushes into the tribe, whether it's the water moonstones or the children, it will be hard to escape. Even if the water moonstones are stolen, don't fight with them. There will be people in the tribe to help. As long as you hide well and wait for the rest of the tribe, it will be fine." With Xiao Xian here, she felt more at ease. Chunjia, this brat, was disobedient and liked to run around. If there was no one watching over him, she would feel uneasy. When this matter was over, she would give more water moonstones to Xiao Xian as thanks. After these few days, Ping felt that Xiao Xian should be a reliable person. Xiao Xian thought for a while and nodded. "Okay, I'll go back with Chunjia." The surrounding people and Ping lived very close to each other, so the children of several families went back together. Xiao Xian went with them, carrying a large basket of water moonstones. The group of children's feet were not slow. They were probably used to this kind of thing and did not panic. After returning to their homes, they all went back to their own homes. The place where the water moonstones were hidden was actually in the water. In the room where Fu Shi and Ping slept, Chunjia lifted up a few wooden planks and carefully placed the rattan basket down. Directly below was the pool. The water here was able to submerge the rattan basket. The murky water was able to hide the rattan basket very well. After placing the rattan basket down, Chunjia then remembered that there was an outsider here. He carefully raised his head to take a look, only to find that Xiao Xian was not paying attention to him at all. Instead, he was busy at the window. "What are you doing?" Chunjia asked, just in case, adding a layer of protection. Xiao Xian replied. When Chunjia came over, Xiao Xian had already finished dealing with the matter. The windows of the drumming tribe were relatively large. Every bedroom had a large window. Most of the time, they would use the window as a door, directly entering and exiting through the window. Therefore, after closing the door, the window was the only way in and out. Chunjia looked at the window and did not find anything special. Just as he was about to reach out and touch the window frame, he was stopped by Xiao Xian. "Your mother told you to hide well," Xiao Xian said. Chunjia bit his hand in annoyance. "No need to hide. I didn't hide before. I'll just wait here." He originally wanted to lean against the window and take a look outside, but when he thought of Xiao Xian's actions just now, he held back and sat there, continuing to bite his hand. He heard that this time it would be even more dangerous. He did not know if anything would happen to his father and mother. In the past, his grandparents had lost their lives in this kind of attack. Xiao Xian glanced at Chunjia. "If you want to hide, will you also hide in the pool?" "Yes. There's a hole in the pool where you can hide." There was no air in the hole under the pool. Only the drumming tribe, who were good at swimming, could hold their breath for a long time. Others could not do what they did. Outside, there were small crocodiles calling out. They were from the other pools. Probably because they felt uneasy, they kept calling out. This included the brown-eyed crocodile in Chunjia's family pool. Xiao Xian looked outside and did not see any intruders. There was not even a person walking around. Everyone stayed in their own houses with their doors tightly shut. No one went out. "You wait here. I'll go out and take a look," Xiao Xian said. After taking 2 steps, he turned around and said, "Don't touch the window. If you want to hide, you can enter the pool from under the wooden planks. Remember, if anyone comes to call you, don't come out of the window. Stand as far away from the window as possible." I know, Chen Jia replied. Xiao Xian jumped out of the window without touching the frame at all. Compared to the fighting outside the tribe, the residential area was much quieter. Of course, that was on the premise that there were no crocodiles calling out. But because of the crocodiles calling out in the pool, it made people feel more nervous and full of danger. The mute crocodile had already climbed out of the pool and was with the other crocodiles in the pool. Sensing Xiao Xian's arrival, it broke away from its small group and headed toward Xiao Xian. On the other side, Chen Jia, who was staying in the house, was worried about his parents' situation. Suddenly, he heard someone calling his name from outside. Chen Jia, are you home? The voice was very familiar. It sounded like someone from the tribe. At the same time, there was the sound of footsteps coming up the stairs. The wooden planks creaked as they approached step by step. Who is it? Chen Jia wanted to jump out of the window to take a look, but he remembered Xiao Xian's instructions before he left. He stopped and stood 2 steps away from the window, looking out. A figure heard Chen Jia's voice and walked to the window, looking into the room. It was dressed like a tribesman. His face looked familiar. It was one of the tribe's patrolling warriors. But Chen Jia had a strange feeling. Chapter 161. What's the matter? Chen Jia did not immediately walk over, but stood still and asked. The chief asked me to bring you all over. This time, the drumming tribe has sent many people, so it's not safe for you all to stay here. The other party said. Seeing that Chen Jia was still doubtful, the man took out a square bone plate with the drumming tribe's totem pattern on it. Here, it was equivalent to the chief's command and was a proof. Seeing the bone plate, Chen Jia's heart relaxed slightly. Then what about my family's water moonstones? Chen Jia asked again. Bring them along. If we leave them here, they will find us. The man said, Okay. Chen Jia did not think that the chief would be greedy for his family's water moonstones. If he could bring the water moonstones to the central area, it would be much safer. Suppressing the strange feeling in his heart, Chen Jia removed the wooden plank and pulled out the rattan basket filled with water moonstones from the water. Carrying it, he walked towards the window. As he walked, he asked, Has Tail and the others all gone over? Tail was a nearby child about the same age as Chen Jia. They often played together. Because his hair was tied up in a bundle and was somewhat stiff, looking like a crocodile's tail, everyone gave him such a name. Yes, they're waiting at the edge of the forest. You'll see them soon. As the man spoke, he looked around. There were people in the other houses looking in this direction. He waved his hand. You all come out too. Let's leave together. Okay, the people on the other side replied. Hearing that many people he knew were here, Chen Jia's heart was happy. Hugging the rattan basket, he planned to climb out of the window. But in the next moment, he remembered Xiao Xian's warning. Xiao Xian said, Don't leave the window if anyone comes over. And should he leave or not? Thus, when he was half a step away from the window, Chen Jia stopped and looked at the person standing outside. Because of the moonlight, half of the person's face was covered in shadows. His eyes were brown and yellow, the eyes of the drumming tribe. But it was strange. Why did this person's face become more and more blurred? His face was blurred. Chen Jia was startled. Looking at the person outside the window, his face showed vigilance. What's wrong? Come out quickly. Everyone is waiting. The man urged. Not only did Chen Jia not move forward, he quickly retreated a few steps, still vigilantly staring at the person in front of the window. He was suspicious of the person in front of him, but when he thought about the domino he had taken out, it was indeed given to him by the leader. Should he give it out or not? Seeing that Chen Jia did not move, the person waiting outside the window scolded him. But Chen Jia still did not move forward. His face was still filled with hesitation as he held onto the rattan basket tightly, as if he was guarding against a thief. After a few words of reprimand to no avail, the man lost his patience. Murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he raised his foot, intending to enter. The moment the other party looked at him, Chen Jia felt as if he had returned to the day when he was pushed into the river. It's him. It was the person in front of him. Chen Jia's heart was as cold as ice. He wanted to escape, but he couldn't. Just as he was about to shout and expose this person, He was stunned by the scene in front of him. The other party leaped up and stepped on the windowsill. With just a light jump, he would be able to enter the house. However, the moment he stepped on the windowsill, a rapid, buzzing sound rang out. The person who was about to jump through the window paused. His feet and some parts of his body were tied up by thin threads. It was these threads that caused his movements to stop for a moment. What's going on? Why is there such a thing at the window? Before he had time to wonder, a stone knife pierced his abdomen from behind. Pooh! Under the moonlight, dark blood dripped from the knife. Ew! He turned his head, only to find that the person he thought had left was actually standing behind him without a sound. Previously, when he quietly came over, he saw Chen Jia and Xiao Xian who entered the house together with Chen Jia. However, he did not know Xiao Xian's strength, so he hesitated whether or not he should act according to plan. Xiao Xian's departure was exactly what he wanted. Once he saw Xiao Xian leave, he came over. He originally thought that Chen Jia, this idiot, would be tricked out quickly, but who would have thought that such a thing would happen? Xiao Xian threw the incapacitated person to the side and looked at the dumbstruck Chen Jia in the room. Are you all right? I'm fine, I can now. Chen Jia looked at the window, his mind still replaying the moment just now. In the blink of an eye, that person was tied up. No wonder Xiao Xian did not allow him to touch the window. You can now, Xiao Xian said. Chen Jia put down the rattan basket, climbed out of the window, and looked at the person who was thrown to the side. Tied up by thin threads and stabbed with a knife, although he was not dead, he was no longer a threat. You knew that someone would come? Chen Jia asked Xiao Xian. I guessed. At this time, the people who were excitedly packing up saw the situation in front of them, and were all frightened. What happened? Chen Jia, you killed your own people. He just said that he would bring us to the chief. Chen Jia, didn't you hear him? Someone said with dissatisfaction. He's a traitor. He betrayed the drumming tribe. Chen Jia said loudly. He's not. A voice came from not far away. Xiao Xian had already sensed that someone was approaching, but after discovering the identity of the other party, he did not make a sound. Chen Jia looked at the person walking over. Qing Yi was the youth who was with Xiao Xian that day when he was mistakenly thought to have killed the crocodile. He was the chief's son and had a high position in the drumming tribe. Xiao Xian also found that many people in the drumming tribe were very afraid of Qing Yi. You said he's not a traitor and did not betray the drumming tribe? How is that possible? I was pushed into the river by him that day. It must be him. Although the voice was different, Chen Jia felt that the person who pushed him that day was this person. Chen Jia, you're mistaken again, right? Yes, Chen Jia, you must be mistaken. Just now he said that he would bring us to the chief. A few people around Chen Jia's age said. Xiao Xian did not make a sound, waiting for Qing Yi's next words. He did not kill the person just now, keeping him alive so that it would be easier to interrogate him. However, Xiao Xian did not doubt his identity. The crocodile in the pond had already opened its mouth towards the person, as if it wanted to bite him. I said he did not betray the drumming tribe, because he is not a member of the drumming tribe. How can he betray us? As he spoke, Qing Yi reached out and grabbed the neck of the person on the ground, gently twisting it. The person who was kept alive by Xiao Xian really stopped breathing. After he stopped breathing, the person's body also changed. His body shrunk a little, and his face was no longer the same as before. Xiao Xian moved his hand, and the silk thread that was originally tightly tied to the person slid down as if it had a life of its own. Seeing that everyone was looking at the silk thread in his hand, Xiao Xian said, Our tribe uses it to set up traps to catch prey. The few of them had an I understand expression on their faces, but they were thinking about other things in their hearts. They had heard from their elders that in many tribes, the warriors were not strong. So in order to not starve, they would use other methods to hunt, such as traps. Therefore, including Chen Jia, the children all thought that in Xiao Xian's tribe, the warriors must be very weak. Retrieving the silk thread, Xiao Xian looked at Qing Yi and asked, Who is this person? I don't know. Knowing that there was a spy, the tribe had indeed made arrangements. However, this place was not in the core area of the tribe, so the people arranged by the tribe had not yet arrived. Qing Yi had chased after a spy here, but he did not expect to encounter such a scene. The chief indeed told the children here to bring the water moonstones over, but the person in charge of notifying this area was me, not him. Qing Yi pointed at the dead person and said, there were already people from the drumming tribe who had entered. They were the best at hiding. They passed through the chaotic battlefield outside and infiltrated into the tribe. They were very skilled at hiding, quietly lurking, and killing at any time. Even the patrolling warriors in the tribe could not detect them all, so there were always areas where they were overlooked. As for the people who attacked the drumming tribe at the beginning, they were only there to attract attention. The tribe had already arranged for people to wait in various places so that they could clean up these hidden people one by one. However, seeing that the situation was not right, the chief sent some people to inform the residents near the border to move inwards. After this incident, they would return. After all, most of the people hiding in their homes were children, so they did not have much fighting power and still needed protection. Knowing that they really had to go to the chief's place, the few people who were disappointed earlier became excited again. The neighbors informed each other, and those who were still at home quickly packed up their things and gathered. There's one more thing I want to say. Even if you follow me to the chief's place, there may be hidden people on the way. When the time comes and we kill them, I may not be able to take care of all of you. Qing Yi said to the people who gathered around. They were surrounded by children. The youngest was less than 10 years old, while the oldest was about the same age as Chunjia. There was even a child who was hugging his newborn sister. With such a group, if they were to encounter someone in hiding, they would definitely be affected. After all, those people in hiding would not show mercy just because they were children. Hearing this, everyone's hearts sank, but they were not too surprised. They were mentally prepared. Since young, they had encountered many things. Actually, we can send the youngest one over first. Xiao Xian said. How do we send them? Everyone looked at Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian pointed to the sky. Cha-cha. A whistle sounded. Very quickly, a figure appeared in the sky. When it flew over, Cha-cha was still holding onto a person from the drumming tribe. Its claws had already pierced through the person, and he was already dead. After leaving the dead intruder behind, Cha-cha landed on the ground. Xiao Xian let the youngest children get on the eagle's back first, including those who were carrying other children. The first batch of 7 children were all under 10 years old. Xiao Xian let Cha-cha bring them over. Cha-cha knew the way, so there was no need to worry. Moreover, the intruders did not attack from the air, so the air was safer than the land. There were still 5 children left behind. Xiao Xian wanted to let Chunjia go up, but this child refused and said to wait for the next batch. Then be careful later. Don't stay too far away from me. Xiao Xian said. Okay. Chunjia hugged the rattan basket and walked to Xiao Xian's side. The other 4, without exception, all gathered around Qing Yi. In their eyes, Qing Yi was much stronger than Xiao Xian, so it was better to follow him. Chapter 162. From Chunjia's house to the central region, it wasn't too far, but it wasn't too close either. The drumming tribe's territory was very large, and because of the many ponds, the people living there weren't as close together as the Yinjiao tribe. Right now, most of the tribe's warriors had already gone to various places to defend against the invaders. Naturally, there were only a few people left in the inner region, and those who were patrolling and investigating internal dangers might not be able to take care of every place. Xiao Xian walked beside a pond. Because of the moon, it wasn't dark at night, so he could see his surroundings clearly. However, under these circumstances, there were still hidden dangers that weren't easy to discover. Qing Yi led the way, his pace neither fast nor slow. He didn't stop because of the hidden dangers in the surroundings, nor did he rush. Beside the pond, there was a pool of blood. Pushing aside the water plants, he could see a person lying there, no longer breathing. Looking at his clothes, he was from the drumming tribe. When Chunjia and the others saw him, their faces were filled with sorrow, but they didn't say anything. Every year, similar situations would happen, but it wasn't every year that they would suffer heavy losses. Xiao Xian looked around. With his many years of hunting experience, he could feel that someone was watching them, but he didn't know where the other party was hiding. As long as the other party made the slightest movement, Xiao Xian would be able to tell. Not only Xiao Xian, but if it were any of the Yin Jiao tribe's warriors who were out hunting, most of them would be able to sense it. Since he couldn't pinpoint their location, he had to use another method. Xiao Xian activated his special ability, and under his vision, he could clearly see the surrounding trees. There were a few skeletons that were clearly different from the surrounding trees, but some of them were blocked by the trees, so he couldn't see them clearly, or he could only see part of the body. However, this was enough. About 30 meters away from them, there was someone hiding there. The other party hid very well, almost as if he had stopped breathing. It was as if he had blended in with the surrounding trees, making him difficult to discover. Just like what Qingyi had said, those who could sneak in without anyone noticing must have very good concealment skills. They were like hunters who were waiting for their prey to come to them at the mouth of a trap. In order to achieve their goal, they could even stand in the same place for an entire day and night, maintaining this state of concealment without eating, drinking, sleeping, or moving. Once they found an opportunity, they would launch a surprise attack in one go, and they would even not hesitate to use suicidal methods to drag their target to death. The drumming tribe's way of doing things made many other tribes wary. Once the drumming tribe was involved, they would enter a state of high alert. Every time they encountered the drumming tribe, there would be a fierce battle. Walking from Chunjia's house to here, Xiao Xian had already seen several corpses. They had been killed without a sound. In the surrounding muddy area, or in the grass by the pool, there were some small crocodiles crying. They were very uneasy and anxious for their parents to come back. However, those big guys had to wait for at least one more day, until the day the river rose. Everyone be careful. Xiao Xian did not directly point out where the people were hiding. He could see that Qing Yi, who was walking at the front, had already noticed. After all, this was their territory. If he directly pointed out where the people were hiding in the dark, it might actually force them out. Cha-Cha had not returned yet, and there were still 5 children here. It was not easy to deal with them. As they got closer and closer to the people hiding behind the tree, Qing Yi raised his hand and signaled the 4 people behind him to retreat. At the same time, Xiao Xian also pulled Chunjia, who was beside him, in another direction. Qing Yi had just taken a step forward when a figure suddenly rushed out from behind the tree. His eyes were fierce and cold. It was not the emotionless coldness of the drumming tribe, but a kind of coldness that was filled with bloodlust. This was a very dangerous tribe. Xiao Xian had already blacklisted the drumming tribe. When the time came, if the Yinjiao tribe could smoothly come over and return to their homeland, they had to be on guard against the drumming tribe. The person who suddenly rushed out had fine scale-like patterns all over his body. He emitted a dangerous aura, instantly causing Chunjia and the other's hair to stand on end. The moment the other party rushed out, Xiao Xian discovered that Qing Yi's arms suddenly expanded, emitting a ka-ka sound. Other than his arms, the other parts of his body also seemed to be inflated, suddenly expanding. Originally, he looked thinner than the other people of the drumming tribe, but after this short change, even his loose beast skin clothes became tight. His mouth opened, revealing 4 slightly long fangs, 2 on top and 2 on top. A low rumbling sound came from his throat. When he looked at the person hiding in the dark, his eyes were like 2 bright spots. Perhaps it was because of the moonlight, but these 2 spots were slightly brighter. When the intruder came closer and closer, Qing Yi also moved. His legs stepped on the ground, meeting the intruder at high speed. The muscles on his entire arm bulged, faintly pulsating. Every muscle contained an enormous explosive force, allowing him to make the fastest attack in the shortest amount of time. Here, there were no fancy techniques. The battle was more direct and simple, and there were no deceptive moves. There were only direct and decisive attacks, as well as the determination to kill the opponent. The intruder was holding a bone knife made of animal bones, but when he swung the knife down, he discovered that the knife was caught by a hand. After Qing Yi held the bone knife with one hand, his other arm smashed down like a stone pillar. at such a close distance, and with such strength, if he was hit, he would be severely injured or even die. The intruder wanted to dodge, but he discovered that the hand holding the knife had unknowingly clamped down on his arm, like a fierce beast biting down on its prey. Unless he broke his arm, he would not be able to escape. The intruder had the courage to break his arm, but unfortunately, he did not have the time to do so. Ka! The crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard in the air. The intruder's eyes were still filled with disbelief, but very quickly, the light dimmed. His body twitched, and then he was no longer breathing. Ching-yi threw the man with a broken skull to the side like he was throwing trash. His legs suddenly exerted force, and he rushed in a direction. There was a small bush there, and it did not look like a good place to hide. It was like a racing car that suddenly accelerated, whizzing past. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of the bush. After a few bangs, the sound of bodies colliding was heard, and the sound of flesh being forcefully penetrated was heard. Immediately after, Xiao Xian saw the figure that was originally hiding behind the bush being torn in half. It was a very violent and bloody way, very much like the style of the Ji tribe. If you looked at Qing Yi's eyes now, you would discover that his eyes were not dark brown, but the same as those people with yellow-brown eyes who had a violent temper. Qing Yi was the only person in the tribe who had two colors of eyes. Normally, his eyes were black and looked harmless, but once he was in a fight, they would become violent. Qing Yi's actions probably made the people lurking around realize that they had been discovered. They rushed out of their hiding places and felt that Qing Yi was not easy to deal with, so they set their sights on Xiao Xian. As long as they got rid of the older ones, it would be fine. The children were easy to deal with, and they could do it at any time. The other party used their speed advantage, and when they rushed out, they even changed their positions to avoid the Ji tribe's sudden burst of speed. As long as they avoided the first move, their chances of success would be higher. However, Xiao Xian was not from the Ji tribe, and Xiao Xian was not slower than the other party. Xiao Xian pulled out his white teeth knife. Ever since he left the tribe, this knife had not undergone the cleansing ceremony. The originally white blade had many red marks on it, left behind by Xiao Xian when he was crossing the river on the canoe. No matter how careful he was, he could not avoid fighting. And a normal brush would not be able to clean the knife completely. A knife that had not undergone the cleansing ceremony, but had gone through many killings, always carried a terrifying aura. The biting cold knife energy made Chen Jia, who was closest to Xiao Xian, feel a chill on his forehead and back, and couldn't help but shiver. Xiao Xian took a deep breath, his body crouching. Facing the people rushing over, he did not dodge, but instead met them head-on. The shoulder holding the teeth knife shook, and, as if an accelerator was installed in his arm, the knife became a blur as it chopped towards the people in front of him. Compared to the people of the Ji tribe, Xiao Xian did not have their inflatable transformation, but the momentum of the knife was stronger, and the power was more ferocious. The knife drew a blurry arc, and with a light poochie sound, the first intruder who rushed toward Xiao Xian had his neck slit. Because the strength of the attack was too strong, the other party's head was almost chopped off. After killing one person, Xiao Xian did not stop. Like a leopard on the hunt, he dodged the other person's attack. As he passed by, he used the handle of his knife to hit the other person's arm. Pung! The other party's knife did not touch Xiao Xian, and instead heavily chopped into the muddy pool at Xiao Xian's feet. The powerful knife chopped into the muddy pool, like a small bomb exploding in the muddy pool. The muddy water splashed everywhere, like an earth-colored firework, exploding with a bang. For a moment, Chun Jia could not see the situation behind the splashing muddy water, but when the muddy water fell again, the battle behind had already ended. The person standing beside the muddy pool was still holding a black bone knife in his hand, maintaining his chopping posture. The scale-like totemic patterns on his face gradually disappeared, and his eyes stared straight at his chest. There was a bloody hole. Blood continuously flowed out, dyeing the muddy water red. This was the first time Xiao Xian had killed someone, but he was surprisingly calm. He did not know if it was because this body had affected his thinking, or if he was used to the cruel rules of this world, or if he was born cold-blooded. Swinging his arm to shake off the blood on his knife, Xiao Xian scanned his surroundings. There were still people coming this way, coming from the outside. He did not know if they were trying to force their way in, or if they were trying to sneak in. No matter what, this was not a place to stay for long. He had to hurry and send the children to the chief. A shadow flashed across the sky. Xiao Xian was delighted. If he could send the 5 children over now, things would be much easier. Chapter 163. After Cha-Cha successfully sent the children to the chief's side, it rushed toward Xiao Xian's side. However, this time, it was attacked from the ground. There are always people hiding in the forest, throwing sharp spears and stone knives at it. Occasionally, arrows with stone arrowheads would shoot out from behind a tree or from a pile of thick grass. This made it very annoyed, as it was still unable to ignore these attacks. If it was hit, it would still be injured. While dodging, Cha-Cha headed toward Xiao Xian's side. Xiao Xian's side also noticed Cha-Cha's predicament. If those people who were hiding only attacked and did not directly attack, it would not be easy to catch them. Xiao Xian still had to take care of the children here, so it was impossible for him to deal with those who attacked Cha-Cha. How about we don't let Cha-Cha come down? It's not far from the chief's side. Chenjia said. Yes, don't let it come down. Another person also said. In the past, they did not like birds, because some water birds were a threat to the little treasure fish. Once they found a bird that was slightly bigger, the tribe's warriors would throw spears or arrows into the air to shoot the birds down. However, if the birds flew higher, it would be difficult for them to shoot accurately. Every time, they would choose to attack the birds when they were close to the ground. That way, the birds would be restricted by the surrounding terrain and would be easy to hit. Qing Yi was currently looking for the people who attacked Cha-Cha, but in terms of speed, it was really difficult for Qing Yi to catch them. Xiao Xian also knew that it was not good for Cha-Cha to come down now. But looking at the situation, if they went over on land, at least 2 of the 5 children would be injured or even die. After thinking for a while, Xiao Xian said, I have an idea. Really? What idea? Chenjia asked. If Cha-Cha could bring them over, it would save them a lot of trouble. They would only be a burden if they stayed here. There's no need for Cha-Cha to come down. I will let you safely get on Cha-Cha's back. Don't worry, Xiao Xian said. Chenjia hugged the rattan basket tightly and nodded his head vigorously. Yes. Seeing that Xiao Xian was not only protecting them, but also trying his best to solve the problem, Chenjia was extremely touched. He had misunderstood Xiao Xian before, but at this time, Xiao Xian was actually so proactive in helping them. Sure enough, Xiao Xian was just like what his father said. Xiao Xian was really a good person. The Yinjiao tribe Xiao Xian belonged to must also be good people. Not only Chenjia, but the other 4 children also had the same thoughts. They felt that Xiao Xian was a good person, and they also believed in Xiao Xian. Tie your rattan baskets tightly to your bodies, Xiao Xian said. I'm done. When you're on Cha-Cha's back, you must hold on tight. Don't let yourself fall off, Xiao Xian said again. Got it, we'll definitely do it. That's good. Xiao Xian chopped the spear thrown at him to one side, while his other hand reached out to Chenjia, who was closest to him. Then Chenjia felt himself being picked up by a strong hand, along with the basket like a little chick. Are you ready? Xiao Xian asked. Yes. Yes. Chenjia swallowed his saliva. He had a bad premonition. In the next moment, Chenjia was thrown into the air. His body quickly left the ground, as if he was weightless, and flew into the sky. The originally tall tree next to him shrunk in the blink of an eye. Previously, he could only see the top of the tree when he looked up, but now he could see a large area when he lowered his head. As a member of the drumming tribe who was used to living on wet land and in water-bathing areas, he had a natural fear of the sky. They could explode with powerful fighting strength on land, and could smoothly chase after prey in the water. But the sky? Last time, Chenjia was in a desperate situation and was pulled up by Xiao Xian from the bottom of the river. At that time, he didn't pay attention to the situation below, nor did he think that something was wrong. Moreover, at that time, he only stared at the river bank, which was completely different from what he felt now. Compared to the previous batch, Chunjia didn't experience the stage of safely flying and was directly thrown out. Looking at the ground, getting farther and farther away, Chunjia felt a sense of dizziness. Completely out of conditioned reflex, he opened his mouth and shouted. Ah, Chunjia, who had always thought of himself as incomparably brave, was actually frightened to the point of crying out and almost wet himself. His cry was so miserable. The people of the Yinjiao tribe, compared to other tribes, were much stronger. In the past, Xiaoxian thought that people in this world were all like this. But after coming to the drumming tribe and seeing the people of the drumming tribe, he realized that this wasn't the case. Therefore, the people of the drumming tribe, who always thought that they were strong and powerful, would never have thought that Xiaoxian would casually throw Chunjia and the basket of water moonstones into the air. When Cha-Cha was young, he had played a similar game with Cha-Cha. The difference was that this time, it wasn't stones or animal skin bags that were thrown out, but people. Of course, to Cha-Cha, there wasn't much of a difference between the two games. The only difference was that this time, it used its back to catch them, and not its claws. At first, Chunjia didn't react. After landing on Cha-Cha's back, he didn't even have time to grab onto Cha-Cha's feathers before he rolled down from Cha-Cha's back. When Cha-Cha caught him again, he remembered that Xiaoxian had told him to hold on tightly to the bird's back. In order to not fall to his death, Chunjia quickly grabbed onto Cha-Cha's feathers. Because he used too much strength, he almost pulled out all the feathers. Cha-Cha was so angry that it let out a loud cry, thinking that when the time came, it would catch this group of people and throw them around for fun. Seeing that Chunjia was safely on Cha-Cha's back, Xiaoxian tilted his head and looked at the other four children. The four people who were standing in the same place with sluggish expressions noticed Xiaoxian's gaze and simultaneously took a step back. Either you get killed or come here, Xiaoxian said. The four of them were still somewhat hesitant. Can you guys be more cowardly than Chunjia? Xiaoxian said provokingly. Finally, one of the children clenched his teeth and braced himself as he walked toward Xiaoxian. Thus, the second person who screamed was heard. Then a third, a fourth, until the fifth child was thrown into the air by Xiaoxian and caught by Cha-Cha. Only then was this matter considered a complete success. As long as it was a success, it didn't matter how it was done. After the 5 children were taken away by Cha-Cha, Xiaoxian and Qingyi's burden was greatly reduced. While heading towards the chief's side, they also cleaned up the hidden people. Along the way, they met a group of drumming tribe warriors who were responsible for finding and cleaning up the hidden people. After Qingyi told them about what he saw, they separated. Qingyi brought Xiaoxian to the core area of the drumming tribe, which was also the place Xiaoxian went on his first day here. There were already quite a few people brought here. Most of them were young children and old people. After completing this task, Qingyi followed another group to patrol the tribe, continuing to clean up the hidden enemies. Xiaoxian was called over by the shaman. After all, Xiaoxian wasn't a member of the drumming tribe, and the shaman had the intention of having a good relationship with the Yinjiao tribe, so he couldn't let Xiaoxian participate in the battle. Xiaoxian had already helped enough. This was a battle that belonged to the drumming tribe, so there was no need to involve others. Since he couldn't participate in the battle, Xiaoxian helped treat the injured. He still had some prepared medicine in his animal skin bag, which he boiled for the injured to drink. For this, the people of the drumming tribe were very grateful to Xiaoxian. The shaman also promised that if the Yinjiao tribe needed help one day, they would do their best to help. This was what Xiaoxian wanted. Helping the drumming tribe was also helping the Yinjiao tribe. With the drumming tribe here, the Yinjiao tribe would have an easier time coming over. This battle, from the night when the 2 moons overlapped to the next day when the moon disappeared and the sun reappeared, it still didn't stop. Unlike the Yinjiao people who were relaxed today, the people of the drumming tribe were still fighting hard. There were many corpses in the tribe, some from the drumming tribe, and some from the drumming tribe. Especially in the outer area, many pools were dyed red. Broken limbs and pieces of flesh could be seen everywhere. Fortunately, the drumming tribe had the advantage in numbers, and this was their own territory, so they were well prepared and had the upper hand. A day passed, and the sun set. The battle gradually cooled down. In the sky, the two moons were separating. In the woods and around the pools, there were still some people of the drumming tribe. They were getting more and more anxious and wanted to run, but they were blocked by the people outside. This time, the drumming tribe was determined to keep these people here to comfort their comrades who had died in this battle. Xiao Xian, who had just helped carry the injured, came out of the house and saw the shaman standing in the open space, looking in a direction in a daze. That was the direction of the river, and the shaman's face gradually showed a trace of a smile. At the same time, Xiao Xian felt the ground under his feet shake, and the pool around him rippled. The shaking became more and more violent, and the familiar sound of thousands of horses galloping came from afar. The air humidity increased, and the water vapor increased. The wind began to blow fiercely, as if it was going to blow off the roof. Some of the wooden planks in the house were swept away, but no one cared about that. Everyone in the drumming tribe had a happy expression on their faces. Those emotionless eyes were now shining with tears. The rumbling sound, the violent shaking of the ground, and the water vapor in the air all meant that the disappeared river was about to rise again. Woo! The return of the kings of the river announced the arrival of changes. The creatures that left during the rainy season all came back with the river. When the kings of the river swam deeper into the river, everything gradually calmed down. A huge claw stepped on the riverbank, and a huge body that was over 10 meters long emerged from the water. A rumbling sound came from its big mouth, like rolling thunder. At the same time, it looked around, probably sensing the abnormal factors in the surrounding environment. Soon, it seemed to have found something that made it very angry. A roar came from the riverbank, spreading far away. Around it, there were many of its companions. Like it, its huge body quickly entered the tributary. In the tributary that was expanding due to the rise of the river, a group of big guys was quickly approaching the tribe. They were responsible for cleaning up the battlefield. Chapter 164. The two moons in the sky were separating, and the earth was still covered with a layer of silver light at night. A figure staggered out from the forest. Probably because his head was hit, half of his face was stained with blood. He felt his vision was a little blurry. Blood flowed into his eyes, but he didn't wipe it away. His head hurt, but he didn't care. What did they come here for? That's right, they came to kill people. Kill the people of the drumming tribe, and then steal their water moon stones. Sneak in, kill, steal, what else was there? He thought as he walked. There were many small puddles of different depths on the ground. The sound of his feet stepping into the puddles was very clear, and the splashing muddy water reflected the moonlight. Until he walked to the side of a river. His remaining consciousness made him stop before he fell into the river. Looking at the river in front of him, he gradually remembered some things he was told before invading the drumming tribe. When the river rises, you have to evacuate quickly. Once the river rises, you can't get close to any ponds or rivers in the drumming tribe. Remember, the river in front of him was less than 10 meters wide. It wasn't a big river in this area, at most a tributary of the tributaries. However, the river level did rise. When the river rises, you can't get close to ponds or rivers. Can't get close. Thinking of this, he suddenly quivered and quickly stepped back. However, he only took a step back when a figure quickly rushed out from the river. A huge mouth came biting towards him. The mouth was covered in hard scales, and the huge jaw had thick, cone-shaped teeth that made people shudder. There seemed to be some meat residue between the teeth, and there was also the smell of blood that had not yet dissipated. This was the last thing he saw. The next second, he was bitten and dragged into the water. The conical teeth instantly pierced his internal organs. Before he was dragged into the water, he was already bitten to death. In the river, there were other crocodiles gathering here. They bit the food, rolled around, cut the food into pieces, and then swallowed it clean. In the drumming tribe, similar things happened in many places. Those who stayed in the drumming tribe were lucky enough to escape with their lives, but those who ran slower would be killed by the drumming tribe and the adult crocodiles. In the end, they would become the crocodiles' food. The corpses left behind from the previous battle were gradually decreasing. However, the ones who were decreasing were the people of the drumming tribe. These outsiders had become food for the returning crocodiles. The small crocodiles that had been crying for a few days now stopped. Some even crawled into the water and went to other places to clean up the trash with the big crocodiles. To the drumming tribe, these crocodiles were treasured fish, but to the others, they were a nightmare. Xiaoxian stood there and watched the crocodiles pass by. These crocodiles that came back from the river, the big ones were more than 10 meters tall, and the small ones were no less than 3 meters. Some swam to other places in the river, and some walked directly through the wetland. Although their walking speed was not fast, they looked murderous. Their eyes were similar to those of the drumming tribe. When these crocodiles that had disappeared for a while returned, the people of the drumming tribe were very excited. This meant that this year's war would end. In the drumming tribe's territory, the best guards were actually these crocodiles. These crocodiles wouldn't harm the people of the drumming tribe. Even if they were no longer breathing, they wouldn't bite them. However, the other tribes didn't have such good treatment. They were completely treated as food and eaten in a very cruel way. As an outsider, Xiaoxian naturally did not dare to run around at this time. He stood together with the people of the drumming tribe. A few steps away, the shaman of the drumming tribe stood. A crocodile that was more than 15 meters long passed by Xiaoxian. It probably noticed that Xiaoxian was different, so it approached and opened its mouth toward Xiaoxian. A low growl came from its throat. It was suspecting Xiaoxian's identity. Its cold eyes were filled with killing intent, as if it would mercilessly bite him in the next moment. However, after the shaman said a few words that Xiaoxian did not understand, the crocodile left. Take this. The shaman handed Xiaoxian a bone plate with the drumming tribe's totem pattern on it. Xiaoxian took it. With this, no matter where he went, the crocodiles would not treat him as an enemy. Moreover, this bone plate was only in the hands of the shaman. It was made temporarily, unlike the chief's plate, which could not be faked. When the moon disappeared and the sun came out, there were no longer any living invaders in the drumming tribe's territory. Xiaoxian brought Qinjia back. Along the way, they could see many large and small crocodiles in the pool. They were rolling around in the pool, tearing apart people whose faces could no longer be seen. The pool had already been dyed red with blood. However, whether it was Qinjia or the other children of the tribe, even the children who were only 2 or 3 years old, they were not surprised at all. Some were even cheering at the side. It was not that they were innately cold, but that they were already used to it. The closer they got to home, the faster Qinjia's steps became. He did not even care about the water moonstones. Xiaoxian helped him carry the rattan basket, but he did not care much. Right now, he just wanted to see if his father and mother had returned home safely. "Mother!" Qinjia shouted and quickly ran over. Xiaoxian looked over. Ping was standing in the house, looking out of the window. "Are you okay?" Ping ran out and looked at Qinjia, then looked at Xiaoxian. No matter if it was Qinjia or Xiaoxian, there were bloodstains on their bodies. However, this was not their blood. After checking that there were no injuries, Ping happily said, "Quickly go in. I'll prepare something to eat." Since Ping was so happy, it was obvious that Fushi was also fine. Fushi was resting in the house. Although there were many injuries on his body, it was enough to keep his life. After seeing the rattan basket that Xiaoxian carried over, Fushi and his wife could not suppress the joy on their faces. Their mouths split open, and that big mouth looked quite scary. If not for this period of time, Xiaoxian had a better understanding of them. He would definitely have the same thought as the other tribesmen. The drumming tribe was really scary. Letting the family of 3 interact more, Xiaoxian came out to look around. He heard the crocodile cry, but it was not because it was afraid. The sound it made was different from before. Next to the pond in front of Qinjia's house, an 8-meter-long crocodile walked over and climbed into the pond. Its eyes were yellowish-brown, and when it looked at people, it was always cold, making people feel cold. After it entered the pond, it picked up the small crocodile and swam from one side of the pond to the other. Those cone-shaped teeth that could easily tear a person's arm off. When it held the small crocodile in its mouth, it did not have any killing power. Instead, it protected the small crocodile. This was also an animal that knew how to protect its young. Previously, the person who was trapped by Xiao Xian's trap and had his neck broken by Qing, he had his corpse taken away. He was not left here to be fed to the crocodiles. Xiao Xian knew that the person's identity was definitely special, and he was not a member of the drumming tribe. In the drumming tribe, people and crocodiles lived in harmony. The real situation was like this, without much intimacy, but they would not harm each other. The invaders were their common enemy. What? Xiao Xian was looking at the crocodiles when he heard Ping cry out in surprise. What's wrong? Xiao Xian walked into the house and asked. Sai, I just heard that someone's water moonstone was stolen. Ping said. Some people in the tribe were busy fighting because of the drumming tribe's invasion and did not pay close attention. Now that everything was over, they cleaned up the water moonstones in the rattan basket. It was clearly wrapped in the animal skin bag, but when they opened it again, they found that it was missing a lot. The animal skin bag was not broken, and the rattan basket was not damaged. Only the water moonstones were missing. It must be a thief. Only they have that ability. Fusher said hatefully. After hearing this, Ping hurriedly opened the rattan basket to check. Her family's harvest this year was not small. If it was stolen, it would be a great loss. Most of the time, the rattan basket was carried by Chunjia. When Chunjia was not looking, it was Xiao Xian who was looking. Good, it's not lost. After checking, Ping let out a sigh of relief. These water moonstones were what they relied on for the next year. All right, Ping originally wanted to wrap the water moonstones again, but when she saw Xiao Xian next to her, she remembered. She took out some water moonstones from the rattan basket and put them into another animal skin bag. Then she handed it to Xiao Xian. Thank you, Xiao Xian. Many people in the drumming tribe were not good with words. Fusher also seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he could only scratch his head and swallow his words. He did not know how to thank Xiao Xian, but when he thought of the advice given by the other tribes during the trade, he tried to show the most sincere smile. Thus, when he looked at Xiao Xian, his mouth was wide open. Xiao Xian, retracting his gaze from the other side, Xiao Xian pushed the animal skin bag. I don't need so much. Xiao Xian found that Ping took out at least 1/5 of the water moonstones. Don't look down on this 1/5. This was money that could be exchanged for a lot of things. Take it. Ping stuffed the animal skin bag into Xiao Xian's hands and said, After this matter is over, we will start the trade. When the time comes, you can go out with Fusher. You will need it. It's your first time out, so there are a lot of things you don't understand. Seeing that he could not refuse, Xiao Xian took the animal skin bag. Moreover, if he went out to trade, he would need it. Where do we usually go to trade? Other tribes? Xiao Xian asked. For small trades, sometimes we go to the Luo tribe, sometimes to the Pu tribe, and other tribes. However, for big trades, we have to go to the trading ground. Ping explained. Fusher understood this better. Every time their family went out to trade, he was the one in charge. The closest tribe to our tribe is the Pu tribe. This time, we will most likely go there. The people of the Pu tribe have a lot of good things in their hands. Stones, pottery, and some medicine. They are all very good things. Xiao Xian remembered Fusher's words in his heart. These were all things he needed to understand. Because in the ancestors' animal skin roll, there was no mention of the Pu tribe. Chapter 165. After the end of the war, the drumming tribe returned to normal. The tribe held a ceremony for the dead warriors, but Xiao Xian wasn't from the drumming tribe and couldn't participate in the ceremony, so he didn't see the fire seed of the drumming tribe. That day, he stayed at Chunjia's house and felt the energy of the fire seed. It was different from the energy of the Yinjiao tribe's fire seed. This energy was much stronger. This was probably what the shaman said about the difference between a complete totem and an incomplete totem. The energy of a Yinjiao tribe's fire seed gave people a warm feeling, but the drumming tribe's fire seed gave people a slightly cool feeling. It wasn't cold, but it was slightly cooler than the Yinjiao tribe's fire seed. Even though he was curious about the drumming tribe's fire seed, Xiao Xian couldn't go and see it. Only when he talked with Fu Shi and the others did he know that their fire pit was actually a waterhole. The bodies of the dead warriors would also be sent to that waterhole. Hearing this, it was a very magical thing. If there was a chance, Xiao Xian really wanted to see the drumming tribe's fire pit with his own eyes. After the funeral ceremony, the tribe became lively again. Everyone was looking forward to the next trade, just like rich people who had just earned a large sum of money and were thinking about how to spend it. The drumming tribe's healing ability was slightly slower than the Yinjiao tribe's, but overall, it wasn't bad. When the totem patterns covered their whole body, it was like a layer of scales covering them, giving them a certain amount of protection. The drumming tribe also knew that, because of this, their attitude towards Xiao Xian was very warm. When they heard that Xiao Xian was going to go out with the trading team, they all imparted their experiences to Xiao Xian, telling him how to choose, how to trade, what the price of each item was, etc. The young ladies of the drumming tribe, who looked cold but were actually passionate, often ran to Xiao Xian's side and showed their brightest smiles. Every time he faced this kind of enthusiasm, Xiao Xian's face froze. On the other hand, the men of the drumming tribe were all infatuated with the passionate girls. Sure enough, different tribes had different aesthetic standards. Due to the return of a large number of adult crocodiles, the Cha-Cha viewed the wetlands as a dangerous place. If they could land on a tree, they would definitely not land on the ground. Finally, the day of the trading team's departure arrived. Xiao Xian took the water moonstone that Ping gave him and left with Cha-Cha. Xiao Xian, you must come to our tribe to play again. Ping said to Xiao Xian. All right, I'll definitely come back. The drumming tribe and the Pu tribe were not close. According to Xiao Xian's understanding, the drumming tribe was located in a remote area. The distribution of tribes here was relatively sparse. Just look at the territory of the drumming tribe. Towards the Pu tribe, they did not walk step by step on the ground, but through the water. On the outskirts of the drumming tribe, there was a river that was more than 10 meters wide. Through this river, the people of the drumming tribe could reach the Pu tribe. The drumming tribe did not have boats. They could make bamboo rafts and wooden rafts. On the few tributaries here, bamboo rafts and wooden rafts could successfully float. However, the people of the drumming tribe did not use them because they had better boats. One after another, crocodiles hung on the water surface. Some only revealed half of their heads. Only their eyes and noses could be seen. The crocodiles often hid in the water like this to maintain their concealment. But there were also some that revealed more of their heads. You could clearly see the scales and patterns on their backs. As the leader of the trading team, after receiving the shaman's blessing, Qing Yi jumped into the river and landed on the back of a crocodile. The crocodiles lined up together like a pontoon, allowing Qing Yi to walk freely on them. The others followed Qing Yi and jumped into the river one by one, then stood on the backs of the crocodiles. Fu Shi carried an empty rattan basket on his back and touched the animal skin bag with the water moonstones. He said to Xiao Xian, "Let's go." Xiao Xian did not let Cha-Cha lead the way. He wanted to be with the people of the drumming tribe and learn more about the Pu tribe. Fu Shi said a lot of things that were not specific. Xiao Xian could learn more from the conversations of the others. The drumming tribe had thousands of people. Not everyone would participate in this trade. Some temporarily did not need to buy anything. Some asked others to help them bring something back, and some waited for their companions to bring something back. Then they would use the water moonstones to exchange for it. After counting the people in the trading team, Qing Yi waved his hand. "Let's go." The crocodiles floating on the water swung their tails and began to move forward along the river. Just as they started moving, Xiao Xian heard a cry from behind. Turning his head to look, he saw a crocodile floating on the river where the sending-off team was. Beside it, there was a small crocodile with dark brown eyes. Many people could not hear its cry, so when Xiao Xian turned his head to look, Fu Shi was puzzled. After seeing the small crocodile, Fu Shi grinned. "It's sending us off." Turning his head back, Xiao Xian signaled to Cha-Cha in the air to follow. A trading team of more than 200 people, accompanied by more than 100 crocodiles. Although this team did not look like a lot, it was very strange. After all, these crocodiles were not real boats. They would not always stay above the water surface. Sometimes they would even sink a little. The people standing on their backs would have their legs in the water. However, the people of the drumming tribe did not feel uncomfortable. After all, they were also close to the water. Xiao Xian looked at the duckweeds on the water surface. These green plants hid the figures under the water. If one looked at the trading team from the land, it would be like a boat moving on its own. Only the ripples on the water would tell others that there were other creatures under the water. There were other fish in the river, even some dangerous ones. However, with this group of crocodiles, these fish all retreated and ran away. Sometimes they could even see some aquatic animals, as well as other animals playing in the water. Those that should be avoided were avoided, and those that did not need to be avoided were directly passed. These animals would naturally avoid them. Feeling a little itchy on his feet, Xiao Xian moved the spear in his hand. With a splash, a finger-long worm was lifted up by the spearhead. It was a worm with a mouth like a suction cup. Its body was reddish-brown with some fine, earthy yellow patterns. Its stomach was slightly bulging. "Be careful, these worms suck blood," Fu Shi, who was standing in front, said. Xiao Xian acted as soon as he sensed it. This worm did not suck Xiao Xian's blood, but he did not know who in the group it belonged to. It seemed that in the river, there were not many big threats, but many small troubles. The river passed through a wetland and came to a mountain ridge. It passed by many towering mountains. For the drumming tribe, these mountains were high enough, but in Xiao Xian's eyes, these mountains were far from the hunting ground and the mountain range near Eagle Mountain. Half a day later, Xiao Xian's vision darkened. The group passed through a narrow channel between two cliffs. Here, the cliffs on both sides blocked most of the light. Only a narrow opening at the top allowed them to see the sky. This narrow channel was especially quiet. The sound of the crocodile's tail swishing could be heard clearly. "After this, we'll reach it," Fu Shi said. The light in front of them was getting closer. When the group came out of the narrow channel, what they saw was completely different from before. In their field of vision, there were large lotus leaves. "From here on, it's the Pu tribe's territory," Fu Shi said. Xiao Xian was about to ask more when he sensed that there was something in the water quickly approaching them. It stopped when it reached the edge of the lotus leaves. The large lotus leaves covered the figure underwater. "Gwa!" A frog-like croak was heard. Xiao Xian reflexively took out his knife and was on guard. Whoosh! A figure broke out of the water, but it did not run directly to the drumming tribe's trading team. Instead, it stood on a lotus leaf the size of a small bed. "We're a little late," the person standing on the lotus leaf said to Qing Yi, who was in front of the trading team. Chapter 166. Xiao Xian looked at the man on the lotus leaf. When he heard the croak, he thought of the long-tailed frogs that appeared at the tribe's shore during the rainy season. That was why he immediately pulled out his knife. The man on the lotus leaf was the Pu tribe's border patrol. He was familiar with the drumming tribes, people who often came here to trade. He was also familiar with Qing Yi. Hearing the other party's words, Qing Yi helplessly said, "The trouble this time is bigger." Other than the drumming tribe's people, there were also people from other tribes involved, but Qing Yi didn't say this. He wouldn't easily tell others. The man on the lotus leaf nodded. He also received the news that the invaders came from the drumming tribe. Qing Yi and the others needed more time to recuperate after the battle, so they naturally came later. His gaze swept over the drumming tribe's team, stopping on Xiao Xian. Who is he? The drumming tribe's people's characteristics were very obvious. He didn't need to look too much to recognize the person who was obviously different from the others. A guest from the drumming tribe, from the Yinjiao tribe. His name is Xiao Xian. Qing Yi introduced. The person standing on the lotus leaf narrowed his eyes and scanned Xiao Xian's body, as if trying to determine if this stranger was a threat. As for the Yinjiao tribe, it was probably an unknown small tribe. There were too many small tribes in this world, so they didn't need to remember them one by one. However, for a guest from the drumming tribe, they still had to give some face. After all, the drumming tribe's people were very rich, especially after the 2 moons. It was the harvest season for the drumming tribe. There were baskets of water moonstones. For such a wealthy trader, the Pooh tribe welcomed him very much. Let's go. Everyone has been waiting for a long time. The man on the lotus leaf jumped back a few steps to another lotus leaf. His cheeks puffed up like a frog, making a croak sound. Not long after the sound was made, Xiao Xian felt something moving under the water. Standing in the water, he could feel the waves. At the same time, in front of the drumming tribe's trading team, which was originally full of lotus leaves and couldn't see anything else, now those tall lotus leaves were tilted to both sides, revealing a waterway in the middle. Let's go. Qing, he led the crocodile forward along the waterway. The other people in the trading team followed suit. The lotus leaves here were very large. The stems of the lotus leaves, which were thicker than a person's thigh, were exposed above the water. The green stems of the lotus leaves were covered with thorns. If someone tried to force their way through, the thorns on the stems of the lotus leaves would cut off their flesh. Unlike the muddy ponds of the drumming tribe, the river here was clearer, but the surface of the water was covered with duckweed, making it difficult to see the situation under the water. When the crocodile swam past, the duckweed would be pushed away by the waves. When the waves rippled, Xiao Xian could see many green frogs hiding in the duckweed under the lotus leaves. Those who were more timid would run away immediately, kicking the water surface vigorously and swimming away in the standard frog style. As for the braver ones, they remained in their original positions with half of their heads exposed. Their 2 round eyes stared at the people passing through the waterway. Their horizontal pupils were like slits, but they did not have the coldness of a crocodile. Instead, they gave people the feeling that they were smiling. From time to time, there would be frog calls, either near or far. They are the people of the Pooh tribe. The one who talked to Qing Yi is called Pooh Yi. He is in charge of the border patrol and defense of the Pooh tribe. Fu Shi said to Xiao Xian. Pooh Yi jumped on a lotus leaf not far away. He wasn't wearing any bee skin clothes, so the drawings on his body were exposed. They weren't totem patterns, but patterns drawn with a special pigment. They wouldn't be washed off by water. At the same time, when Pooh Yi and Qing Yi were talking, Xiao Xian also noticed that Pooh Yi had some drawings around his eyes. These were the preferences of the Pooh tribe. People with different preferences would draw different patterns around their eyes. This was the custom of the Pooh tribe, passed down from their ancestors. Pooh Yi jumped from one lotus leaf to another. Sometimes because of his jump, the dew on the lotus leaf would flow down with the tilt of the lotus leaf, falling into the water and making a dripping sound. Under the water, there were many warriors like Pooh Yi who were in charge of border patrol. They pulled the lotus leaves to both sides, opening up a waterway. No matter if it was the people of the Pooh tribe or the drumming tribe, they were all excellent swimmers. Following the waterway opened up by the Pooh tribe, the trading team moved forward. As they continued to move forward, Xiao Xian could feel the temperature gradually rising. There was no longer the cold of the mountains, but became warm and humid. If you stood at a high place, you could see everything green. Green lotus leaves, green duckweed, and dense green forests on both sides of the river. The frog calls around them became more and more frequent, proving that there were more and more frogs around. Fortunately, Xiao Xian did not find any long-tailed giant frogs in the river. The totem of the Pooh tribe was a frog. This also proved that they had a close relationship with frogs. Here, anyone who killed frogs for no reason would be punished by the Pooh tribe. The Cha-Cha did not enter the territory of the Pooh tribe. Instead, they wandered around the border. Without the permission of the Pooh tribe, they would be attacked as invaders. The people of the Pooh tribe were good at using poison. Following the waterway for a while, Xiao Xian heard people cheering. They are here! Quick! The people of the drumming tribe are here. Father, the trading team is here. Quickly take out the things. Some of the voices came from the shore, while others came from the lotus leaves above. Looking from the water's surface, on the big, umbrella-like lotus leaves, one could see a moving shadow. You are still very popular. Xiao Xian said to Fu Shi. Of course, we often come a trade with them. We all know each other and have a good relationship. Huh. Fu Shi rarely heard people say that his tribe was popular. He felt very happy. Only Qing, Yi, and a few others' faces twitched. Of course they were popular. They were the important customers of the Pu tribe. Without the drumming tribe, most of the people of the Pu tribe would immediately live in poverty. Following the open waterway, the team turned a corner. In front of them was the riverbank. On the riverbank, there were already many people of the Pu tribe waiting. Big and small, young and old, each and every one of them was smiling until their mouths cracked. Different from the fierce, bloody mouth of the drumming tribe. Although the people of the Pu tribe had big mouths, many of them had slightly upturned mouths. Coupled with the shape of their jaws, they did not look as stiff as the people of the drumming tribe. They gave people a feeling that they were much more enthusiastic. In addition to their mouths, the people of the Pu tribe generally had big eyes. Coupled with their unique customs, everyone's eyes were painted with patterns. According to the warriors of the drumming tribe who often came out to trade, they could judge the character of the people of the Pu tribe based on those patterns. And the experienced old warriors gave Xiao Xian advice. Stay away from those with very colorful patterns. Those people were very dangerous. Just like some colorful frogs, the more colorful they were, the more likely they were poisonous. Huh, you finally came. A middle-aged man walked forward a few steps and greeted Qing, Yi, and a few others. Is everything ready? Qing, Yi stepped onto the shore and walked with the man towards the Pu tribe. It's been ready for a long time. We've been waiting for 2 days. Xiao Xian followed Fu Shi and a few others to the shore. As for the crocodiles used as boats, they would rest in the surrounding river. The people of the Pu tribe would take care of them. An auntie wearing an animal skin coat, carrying a large wooden plate, walked over with a smile. Welcome to the Pu tribe. Here, freshly roasted. Xiao Xian looked around. There was a large plate of roasted insects. Every one of them died with their eyes wide open. Xiao Xian, really enthusiastic. Fu Shi and the others were already used to it. They reached into the wooden plate and grabbed a handful of things to eat. Seeing that Xiao Xian didn't move, Fu Shi and a few others recommended, Xiao Xian, the Pu tribe's roasted things are not bad. You can try it. Once you leave, it will be hard to eat it again. Xiao Xian stared at the insects that died with their eyes wide open for a few seconds. He reached out his hand to grab one that looked like it still had all 4 limbs. But he didn't expect the Annie to be so enthusiastic. She directly grabbed a handful and stuffed it into Xiao Xian's hand. Xiao Xian, thank you. Although it looked terrible, the taste was just like what Fu Shi said. It was good to eat if you ignore the appearance. In the Pu tribe's village, the houses in the residential area were not big. They were made with branches and leaves. Some were in an oval shape with an opening on the side. Some were in a large triangular shape. There was no fixed shape. It looked very artistic. It wasn't that they didn't have the ability to build bigger and stronger houses. It was just that their habits and preferences made them more inclined towards this kind of building style. At noon, the sun was too strong. Some people even folded lotus leaves and used them as umbrellas. Because there was still Cha-Cha's matter, Qing Yi let the others trade first. He brought Xiao Xian to the Pu tribe's chief. The Pu tribe shaman often stayed in his cave and rarely came out. Every time the drumming tribe people came to the Pu tribe, they would see the Pu tribe's chief, Guangho. The place where Guangho lived was in the central area of the Pu tribe. Because the people here lived more densely, they didn't have to walk too far to reach Guangho's house. It was a pointed wooden house with a roof made of grass and leaves. The door was open, and the person at the door indicated that they could go in. After entering the house, the first thing Xiao Xian saw was a lump of meat sitting in the front. That was the Pu tribe's chief, Guangho. Guangho's eyebrows were protruding like 2 horns. Around his eyes were some yellowish-green and black stripes. Compared to the other people in the Yinjiao tribe, Guangho's appearance was more ferocious. Because his body was slightly bigger, he looked like a meat dumpling. It was very oppressive. At this moment, Guangho was sitting there. His thick and fat hands were holding an unknown animal and eating. Seeing Xiao Xian come in, Guang Ho's eyes narrowed. He looked at Xiao Xian, and his mouth didn't stop eating. "You are from the Yinjiao tribe?" Guang Ho asked. "Indeed. Yinjiao tribe? I seem to have heard of it," Guang Ho said. Chapter 167. Hearing Guang Ho say that he had some impression of the Yinjiao tribe, Xiao Xian was happy, but the next moment, Guang Ho said, "If I remember correctly, your totem is a fish, right?" Xiao Xian was silent for a few seconds, then handed over the stone card the shaman gave him. "This is our tribe's totem. I have come with the goodwill of the Yinjiao tribe. I am very happy to meet you." Oh, Guang Ho didn't care. He took the stone card with the totem pattern drawn on it from Xiao Xian and looked at it. He didn't have any impression of it, so he handed the stone card back. He smiled so much that his chin folded into several layers. He said to Xiao Xian, "I still believe in the guests of the drumming tribe." Xiao Xian told Guang Ho the purpose of his visit and told him about the cha-cha that was staying at the border of the Pu tribe. Unfortunately, although Guang Ho looked more amiable than the chief of the drumming tribe, he refused immediately. "The bird you mentioned just now, I don't want to enter this territory. In the past, very few large birds came here, and we don't have a good impression of birds. Many aquatic animals didn't like birds that came from the sky." Xiao Xian knew this, and he could also see that Guang Ho didn't care about him. It was only because of Qing Yi that he said a few words. Otherwise, he wouldn't even bother to look at Xiao Xian. While he was talking to Xiao Xian, Guang Ho had already looked at the food on the side a few times. After the conversation, Xiao Xian said goodbye and left. Before he entered the Pu tribe, he had told the cha-cha that if it heard the whistle for permission, it should come over. If it heard the whistle for refusal, it could move freely outside. Maybe the cha-cha was happy to play outside, but there were more restrictions in the tribe. After leaving Guang Ho's house, Qing Yi said apologetically, "I didn't help. It's okay. The cha-cha is more free outside. Wait for me to go out and call it." As for Guang Ho's attitude, Xiao Xian didn't think too much about it. He didn't want to get anything from the Pu tribe. He just wanted to see more of the tribes other than the Yinjiao tribe. However, why hadn't the drumming tribe and the Pu tribe heard of the name Yinjiao tribe? According to the records and words left behind by the ancestors, it could be seen that the ancestors were still very proud. They were also very proud of the former Flaming Horns tribe, which showed that the Flaming Horns tribe was not a small border group in the past. Perhaps it was because too much time had passed that everything had changed. After leaving Guang Ho's place, Xiao Xian parted ways with Qing Yi. Qing Yi needed to go shopping, and the chief and shamanist gave him a list of things he needed to buy. Si ho ho kama, the Yong tribe, the tribe, yin yin ho ho's ho. Originally, Xiao Xian thought that the Pu tribe and the drumming tribe trade fair would be like a market, but now it seemed that it wasn't. They didn't place their items in one place. The Pu tribe people only placed their items outside their houses, so if they saw something placed outside their houses, it would be used for trade. If they liked it, they would go and buy it. Here, there was no unified currency. They used equivalent exchange. However, it couldn't be considered as an equivalent exchange. Xiao Xian didn't walk far when he saw several people from the drumming tribe who were buying without haggling. Then he looked at the people from the Pu tribe who were smiling. It was obvious that they had gained a lot from trading with the drumming tribe. No wonder the Pu tribe people were looking forward to the arrival of the drumming tribe's trading team. No wonder they were so enthusiastic. The drumming tribe people looked very fierce, but in fact, they didn't have many other thoughts. In the eyes of the Pu tribe people, to put it bluntly, the drumming tribe people were just stupid people with money. Before coming, Xiao Xian heard Fu Shi complain about why the drumming tribe people weren't welcomed outside. Why were the Pu tribe people more welcomed by other tribes than them? On one hand, the drumming tribe people had bad tempers. On the other hand, it was because they weren't very smart and didn't know how to talk. They weren't as good as the Pu tribe people. Of course, this also had to do with their faces. Every time the drumming tribe people went out, they would be treated as people with bad intentions. Because they looked too fierce, especially when they looked at people, it was like a cold knife cutting through people. On the other hand, the Pu tribe people made people feel more amiable. Look at their smiles, how warm. As he walked, Xiao Xian paid attention to the surrounding houses that displayed all kinds of items. Pottery, stone cores, and all kinds of strange things from other tribes. The old people in the tribe treated the pottery as treasures. They could also be seen here, but the price was very high. What made Xiao Xian surprised was that he also saw a piece of linen. You like it? This is from the central region. I heard that the people in the central region love to use this kind of cloth to make clothes. The man said proudly. He was wearing a short skirt made of linen, which he showed off in the tribe. Although many people didn't like this kind of thing, once they heard that it was from the central region, their attitude immediately changed. Therefore, when this man said it, he didn't use too many words to embellish it. He only emphasized the words from the central region, waiting for Xiao Xian to show a look of surprise, and then use a lot of water moonstones to exchange for it. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. Xiao Xian only calmly asked about the central region, and then gave him a small piece of water moonstone as a reward and left. After Xiao Xian left, the man looked at the small piece of water moonstone in his hand. Although this piece was already a big profit, he was still not reconciled. Why didn't he keep him? That was something he had painstakingly obtained from the central region. This kid didn't even show a look of surprise. Could it be that he hadn't seen it before? Or did he know that he didn't have the money to buy such an expensive thing? Xiao Xian didn't know that in the eyes of the shopkeeper just now, he had already become a poor country bumpkin. In Xiao Xian's eyes, that piece of linen was very coarse and wouldn't be more comfortable to wear than animal skin. Using a large piece of water moonstone to buy such a coarse piece of cloth, was he stupid? Not long after, that piece of linen was bought by Fu Shi, one of the local tycoons of the drumming tribe this year. Xiao Xian didn't speak for a long time after seeing this. Sure enough, their values were different. Perhaps the two words central region was already the biggest golden signboard. Looking at Fu Shi's happy face, then looking at the envy of the other people of the drumming tribe, Xiao Xian felt that he still hadn't fully adapted to the rhythm of this place. What kind of place was this central region? Was it more developed than here? Was the Yinjiao tribe in the central region in the past? It was said that the colored pottery came from there. Because it was fragile during the transportation process, the colored pottery transported here was very expensive. Among the nearby tribes that often came to the Pu tribe to participate in the trade, only the drumming tribe bought the most of it. Touching the water moonstone in the animal skin bag, this was really a good thing, comparable to gold. After staying in the Yinjiao tribe for so long, he had forgotten the benefits of money. The people of the drumming tribe didn't know much about the central region. They only knew that the things from the central region were very good. So every time they came, whenever they heard that something came from the central region, they would immediately take out their animal skin bags to buy it, not even asking for a price. In addition to these, the Pu tribe also had many local specialties, such as frogs. Of course, this didn't mean that they would sell the frogs. For the Pu tribe who used frogs as totems, they wouldn't kill the frogs here. What they sold were things taken from the frogs, such as poison, medicine, and other special things. Xiao Xian came to an oval-shaped house. This place was a bit remote, so not many people of the drumming tribe came here to trade. An old man sat cross-legged on the ground in front of the door. In front of him, there were no pottery, stone tools, or things from other tribes, only a few frogs with different shapes, sizes, colors, and patterns. Next to him was a large basin of water. After a while, the old man reached out and scooped water from the basin, sprinkling it on the frogs in front of him. When Xiao Xian came over, the old man had just finished sprinkling the water. Seeing Xiao Xian come over, the old man's eyes lit up. "What do you want?" "These are?" Xiao Xian pointed at the frogs lying motionless in front of the old man and asked, "You're not from the drumming tribe? Is this your first time in our tribe?" The old man didn't feel disappointed because Xiao Xian wasn't from the drumming tribe. Instead, he smiled very happily because once the people of the drumming tribe bought something, they would first choose the same place as last time. This place was a bit remote, so the old man rarely met people from the drumming tribe when trading. Instead, he was more interested in customers from other tribes. "Yes, it's my first time in the Pu tribe," Xiao Xian said, his eyes staring at the frogs on the ground. A few frogs, the small ones were only the size of a fingernail, and the big ones couldn't even be held by a palm. The old man enthusiastically introduced the characteristics of these frogs to Xiao Xian, as well as the things they could contribute. This one's body can be used to save people. Dizziness, chest tightness, vomiting, body weakness, and so on can be treated. In this one, its body can be used to firmly stick two planks together. As he said this, the old man made a goo-goo sound, then held a thick leaf and waited. Xiao Xian looked at the orange pattern frog. At this moment, its pupils shrank. Because it was horizontal, it looked like it was squinting, as if it was preparing something. After waiting for a few seconds, nothing happened. Xiao Xian looked at the old man, then at the frog on the ground. Was this frog constipated? Just as he was thinking, Xiao Xian saw the orange pattern frog secreting some translucent liquid from its back. As the liquid increased, the old man quickly used the thick leaf in his hand to scrape the liquid off. The leaf wouldn't hurt the frog, so the Pooh tribe often used this method to get the liquid. Look, the old man took out 2 wooden blocks, then smeared some of the liquid on the thick leaf. The wooden blocks closed, and after a while, the 2 wooden blocks were firmly stuck together. This thing was simply the same as the glue that the Flaming Horns tribe found to be used to glue things together. How many of these do you have? Xiao Xian asked. As many as you want. The old man was so excited that his hands were shaking. Where are the others? Xiao Xian let the old man continue to introduce them. He was very interested in these things. The old man was also in high spirits as he explained to Xiao Xian one by one. There were all kinds of strange frog secretions. There was also a frog that secreted oil on its skin, which was preferred by some people in arid areas. These frogs, for the Pooh tribe, were simply a tool to make money. Because the old man had some stock at home, Xiao Xian took out the water moonstones and, according to the old man's price, selectively bought some. Right, do you sell frog poison here? Xiao Xian asked. You want? The old man carefully looked around, then said to Xiao Xian, Of course, follow me. Chapter 168. The old man looked around as if he was guarding against a thief. He quickly tidied up the things in the house and called out twice. The frogs that were originally lying quietly on the ground by the door all jumped away. Some ran into the forest, while others ran towards the river. After tidying up, the old man pulled Xiao Xian in one direction. While walking, he explained to Xiao Xian in a low voice, You want frog poison, so naturally you want frog poison with good effects. My grandson can get it for you. You can have whatever you want. The old man was afraid that Xiao Xian would change his mind and turn around to leave, so he kept talking to Xiao Xian. He was afraid that Xiao Xian would find it troublesome and go to other people's houses to buy. After all, there were many people in the Pooh tribe who sold frog poison. For example, many people in the drumming tribe liked to buy tools that had already been smeared with frog poison. They would directly wrap it up, stuff it into a basket, and leave after paying some water moonstones. What the old man wanted to do now was to take Xiao Xian to get on the spot. Compared to other people, it was a bit more troublesome. Xiao Xian didn't think much of it. As long as he could get what he wanted, he didn't mind if it was a bit troublesome. Moreover, after seeing the things that the old man scraped from the frogs, he was quite curious. In the past, when he was in the Yinjiao tribe, when he went out to hunt, the warriors also liked to use some things that came from animals. They used those poisons to smear the weapons in their hands, such as spearheads, bows, and so on. Among them, there were various kinds of poisons. Frog poison was more commonly used. When a Yinjiao tribesman took frog poison, they would first kill the frog, then roast the dead frog over a fire. As they roasted, the poison would slowly seep out from the frog's glands. After the frog poison came out, as long as they took the weapon and smeared it back and forth on the frog's body, the desired effect would be achieved. For poisonous frogs, the warriors only needed to smear a bit of frog poison on their weapons to hunt prey. Generally, wild beasts that were poisoned by frog poison would die very quickly. Ferocious beasts had stronger resistance and wouldn't die, but their movements would be affected. We're almost there. Don't worry. The old man said hurriedly. Xiao Xian was not in a hurry, but the old man next to him was. He pulled Xiao Xian to a place by the river. Looking at the big lotus leaves in the river, he shouted, "Hey, are you there?" The lotus leaves on the surface of the river swayed with the wind. Some frogs in the river croaked, but there was no human voice. The old man was so angry that his beard trembled a few times. He said again, "Come out. I see you." Still, no one answered. The old man took a deep breath and roared, "Get out here. I know you're here." Finally, a helpless reply came from a cluster of lotus leaves not far away. "Yes, Grandpa. What's the matter?" A figure jumped out from the lotus leaves and landed on a large lotus leaf by the riverbank. He glanced at Xiao Xian and then looked at the old man. "Grandpa, you can sell whatever you want. Why did you call me? I'm still sleeping." "Why are you sleeping?" The old man's eyes bulged as if they were going to pop out. "Come here. This young man from another tribe wants to buy frog poison. There are so many frog poisons in the tribe. It doesn't matter where I buy them." "Grandpa, I remember you collected several jars at home." Zhao yawned and said. The old man stopped breathing and mumbled. He didn't look at Xiao Xian and wasn't afraid of the thorns on the stem of the lotus leaf. He bent his arm and picked up the stem. "Come down. Sleeping all day. Are you in a hurry to get through the winter?" Zhao had no choice but to jump down from the lotus leaf. His eyes were half closed as if he hadn't woken up yet. He looked at Xiao Xian. "You want to buy frog poison? What kind?" The old man slapped him and then looked at Xiao Xian with a smile. "Young man, what kind of frog poison do you want?" Xiao Xian thought for a moment and said, "Can I take a look at those frogs first?" He didn't know how different the frogs here were from the ones in the Yinjiao tribe. Of course, of course." The old man didn't wait for Zhao to answer and quickly answered. Zhao whispered, "Trouble," and then jumped on the lotus leaf. His cheeks puffed up, and he made a few goo-goo sounds before returning to the shore. After a while, Xiao Xian saw some frogs jump out from the forest and a few from the river. Most of these frogs were brightly colored, but there were also some that didn't look very conspicuous. Each frog was no bigger than a palm. After jumping over, they surrounded Zhao and didn't run away. They just stood there and occasionally moved their hind legs to wipe away the mucus on their bodies to keep their skin moist. "These are all dead. This frog's poison can relieve pain, and it's very effective. I use it on the wild beasts on the mountain over there." Zhao said, "And then?" Xiao Xian asked. "They died." Xiao Xian, "If you use too much, even if it can be used as medicine, it's poison." Zhao said, "If you use poison well, it's medicine. If you don't use it well, it's poison." Xiao Xian naturally knew this. This one, and this one's poison is not bad. Just a little bit can kill the wild beasts in the forest. Zhao introduced a few of the frogs to Xiao Xian and then asked, "What kind of poison do you need? Poison blind? Poison mute? Numb all over? Rotten?" After asking a lot of questions, Zhao stopped and looked at Xiao Xian. He usually didn't like to participate in transactions, but since his grandfather had pulled him over, he naturally had to do his part. Otherwise, if he didn't get this deal done, his grandfather would nag him again when he went back. When Xiao Xian heard this series of questions, he was stunned. When he was in the Yinjiao tribe, he also used a lot of poisons, but he had never differentiated them so carefully. It seemed that the young man in front of him was very good at this. Seeing Xiao Xian staring at the frogs and not saying anything, the old man standing next to him became anxious. "If you don't know which one to choose, you can buy some of them and try it out." Then he turned to Zhao with a stern face. "Hurry up and make some poisonous stingers." Zhao scratched his head and helplessly said, "Okay." Then he walked toward the forest, and the old man eagerly pulled Xiao Xian to follow him. Although this kid in my family is a little lazy, but his understanding of poisonous frogs, this old man doesn't dare to say that he's the best, but he's definitely ranked in the front of the tribe. Xiao Xian followed them into the forest. These two people didn't have any malicious intentions, and they weren't like the Pooh tribe traders who had a belly full of ulterior motives. Moreover, Xiao Xian also wanted to see how the Pooh tribe people would extract poison from the frogs. Xiao Xian believed in Zhao's understanding of poisonous frogs. Around Zhao's eyes and eyelids were a dazzling, bright yellow pattern, which was very similar to the poisonous frog that had just jumped out. What kind of pattern would be drawn according to one's preference? From this, it could be seen that Zhao was very fond of poisonous frogs, so naturally he understood them better. While walking in the woods, when passing by some plants with long thorns, you would break off some hard thorns from them. When he had a lot of hard thorns in his hand, you would stop. Then, he used the stone knife that the old man carried with him to chop a piece of wood. He split it in the middle and placed the wood on the ground. You croaked a few times. After waiting for the frogs to come over, he took out a hard thorn. You held it between his index and middle fingers and rubbed it on the body of the nearest frogs with blue patterns. Some transparent liquid was secreted from the frog's body. This was the frog's poison that could kill an entire deer. The long hard thorn was smeared with the poison, but it did not hurt the frog at all. After smearing it, Zhao turned his wrist, palm facing down, and slapped the wood he had just split open. When he retracted his hand, the poison hard thorn had been firmly nailed to the wood. The tip of the hard thorn was facing up, and the one that was nailed into the wood was the broken end. Just like when nailing a nail, the other end was nailed into the wood, not the tip of the nail, but the other end. From this series of actions, it could be seen that Zhao was very proficient in this. He had done this many times before. One by one, the hard thorns smeared with poison were firmly nailed to the wood. There were 5 thorns for each type of frog poison. When one type of frog was finished, he would change to another frog and continue to apply the poison. Although this frog's poison may not be able to kill people, but this is its main effect. Zhao used the hard thorn to smear on a dark blue frog, and then smeared the poison on the hard thorn onto the leaves of a nearby plant. With a sizzling sound, a hole was quickly corroded where the poison was smeared on the leaf. There was still smoke coming out, and it smelled a little pungent. When the poison was smeared, there was no smell at all. It was hard to imagine that this kind of poison was taken from a frog that was not even the size of a palm. As for the hard thorns used by Zhao, because the surface of the thorns had a layer of corrosion-resistant hard skin, they would not be corroded by the poison. Zhao continued to nail the hard thorns smeared with poison onto the wood. When the poison on the thorns dried, he took them off the wood and wrapped them in something. When he needed to use them in the future, he could just take them out. The effect of the dried poison would not weaken much, but there was a time limit. The longer the poison was left, the weaker the poison would be. Xiao Xian watched as Zhao nailed the hard thorns into the wood with his bare hands. He knew that many frog poisons could only work through the blood. If they did not cut, the poison would not have much effect. Many of them would only cause a rash on the fingers and would not be fatal. When the warriors of the Yin Jiao tribe caught animals with poison, they would take certain protective measures. They would either wrap their hands with something or use other tools to catch them. But now, there were many frog poisons here that could work directly through the skin. There was no need to cut, but the person who made the hard thorns was very calm and used his fingers without any protection. If even a little bit of poison came into contact with the skin, it would corrode the skin and create a hole or be poisoned, especially when the thorns smeared with poison were nailed into the wood. Many people were worried that the poison on the thorns would slide down to their fingers. But Zhao was always able to pull back the moment the poison dripped down, so the poison did not touch his fingers at all. What surprised Xiao Xian even more was that after there were no more thorns nailed into the wood, Zhao would directly hold the remaining thorns in his mouth. His teeth would bite the end of the thorns that was not stained with poison. As long as even a little bit of poison touched his lips, he would feel better. This was a very dangerous thing to do, but the old man next to him was not surprised. He had seen it many times and was not worried. After the thorns were smeared with poison, the poison on the thorns gradually dried. Zhao then pulled out the thorns with poison. Of course, this time he did not do it with his bare hands, but with the help of leaves. Passing the wrapped thorns to Xiao Xian, Zhao said, "Well, you can try these. If you think they are good, you can come again. Just find this old man. I'm going to sleep." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.